It's late, I know, but I'm glad you're here. Tonight, we're going to pull back the mythologized curtain on one of history's most glorified stages, the medieval battlefield. You've seen the movies, you've read the tales, but none of them smell like pus and bile, or feature a man bleeding out from an infected toenail. We're going to talk about all the ways you would definitely, almost certainly, not survive a single day in the dirt with the knights. If you enjoy this kind of unvarnished history, where the chainmail is rusty and the glory's mostly gangrene, feel free to subscribe, or don't. You might already be dying of dysentery. Let me know where you're listening from tonight, or what time it is when this hits your ears. I'm always curious. Now, dim the lights, and let's drift back in time. Let's pretend you wake up, not in your warm bed, but in a damp clearing at the edge of a forest, somewhere in France. It's spring, allegedly, but the wind feels like knives and everything smells like pig fat and mildew. You're dressed in borrowed linen armor, yet and a man with half a nose is yelling at you in a dialect you don't understand. Congratulations, you've arrived on the edge of a medieval battlefield. There is no training montage, no warm-up, no breakfast burrito. Just a call to line up behind a man named Jeff, who has never bathed and once killed a cow by accident during archery practice. You're handed a spear made of ash wood, already splintered. It looks like something your cousin broke at summer camp. If you're lucky, you're a peasant levy. That means you were conscripted, not trained. You might have a pointy stick and a leather jerkin, but probably not both. And that stick, it's more for scaring horses than actually killing anyone. Killing is reserved for professionals, mercenaries, knights, and that one butcher from town who just really likes stabbing. The first thing you notice is the sound. Not the clashing of swords that comes later, and it's more of a wet, crunching mess than Hollywood lets on. No, it's the breathing. Dozens of men, wheezing, coughing, muttering prayers. Someone's already vomiting. The priest is trying to bless everyone, but keeps getting interrupted by screams. One man is crying and insisting he saw death in the trees. You believe him. Then there's the smell. Think sweat, fear, feces, and the distant tang of iron. Not noble iron jest, blood and rust. Armor chafes, leather binds, everything itches, especially the lice, which are already setting up camp in your collar. The horn sounds. You don't know what that means, but Jeff starts running. So you run too. Immediately, someone trips. A horse rears. An archer looses a badly aimed arrow and hits a goose. Not even a soldier, just a goose. The man next to you starts laughing so hard he falls over and gets stepped on by a man named Thomas, who is crying and covered in bees. You don't know where the bees came from. No one does. Within minutes, half your unit is confused, shouting, and at least 2 are bleeding from unrelated, non-combat-related injuries. You're beginning to suspect medieval warfare is less like Braveheart and more like a very sad, very muddy game of tag, where the tag is typhus, and you haven't even seen the enemy yet. Let's be generous and say you haven't died yet. Not from panic, not from plague, not from the terrifying discovery that your boots were, until recently, someone else's boots and they still contain that someone's toe. You're standing in a half-formed rank on a flattened field that might once have been farmland, though now it's mostly churned mud and decomposing animal matter. Welcome to no man's land, where cows once grazed and now guts are spilled. You're trembling, not from fear though that's there too, but from exposure. Medieval Europe didn't do thermal layers. If it's summer, you're sunburnt. If it's winter, you're already frostbitten. No SPF, no Gore-Tex, Just wool that hasn't been washed since the last guy bled out in it. And you can't afford gloves, which means your hands will blister from holding a weapon too long, and then those blisters will split, and then, well, sepsis. Across the field, the enemy is assembling. You can't quite see them yet through the morning fog and the flying insects, but you hear drums, not the dramatic, orchestral kind, just a slow, methodical thump, like someone is pounding nails into your coffin from a distance. They are, metaphorically, probably not metaphorically for long. This is the part where you'd expect a speech, some kind of rallying cry, a call to glory, a general's stirring monologue about honor and homeland and destiny. Instead, you get a man on a pony shouting "Move up," and coughing so hard he vomits. No one moves, because no one knows where to go. The command structure is ... fluid. Jeff was supposed to be under Sir William, but Sir William was hit by a cartwheel on the way here. So now Jeff's taking orders from a man called Leggy Martin, whose only qualification is that he still has both legs. You, for reasons unknown, have been designated the rearguard, meaning you're either extremely valuable or utterly expendable. You suspect the latter. Then a pause, long enough for your brain to start inventing horrors. What if they have cavalry? What if they have archers? What if they have something you've never heard of before, like war pigs or siege toads or fire? Especially fire. Fire is bad. You're mostly made of hair, alcohol, and kindling. Someone farts loudly. It echoes. The man next to you mutters something in Latin and passes you a flask. You drink. It's not wine. It's not water. You don't ask. It burns and numbs in equal measure. Overhead, a raven circles, ominous. Very Shakespeare. You try not to make eye contact. To your left, a drummer boy with a lazy eye is trying to keep rhythm, but has clearly lost track. To your right, a young noble is vomiting into a helmet. Probably his own. Probably his only. Then horns again. This time, sharper. A cheer goes up somewhere near the front, but it's not enthusiastic. It's the kind of cheer people make when they've decided to die with dignity, or when they've just stolen someone else's bread and need to pretend it was a gift. You ready your spear. The splinters bite your palms. You remember, suddenly, a line from church. Thou preparest a table before me in the presence of mine enemies. You wonder if the table has bread, or wine, or just a very long list of your sins, freshly inked. And then you move. Not because of bravery, not because of belief, but because everyone else is, and if you stay still, you'll get trampled. Trampled by friends, not foes, which feels, somehow, worse. And so begins your first, and likely last, march into medieval warfare. You are 30 seconds in, and your foot is already broken. So you're moving, kind of. Your formation is less a disciplined advance and more a chaotic shuffle, like a herd of sleep-deprived goats trying to perform synchronized swimming on dry land. Every third man is limping. Every second is confused. Every single one smells like despair and onions. You haven't seen the enemy yet, but that doesn't matter, because your own side is already trying to kill you accidentally, of course. A man behind you keeps poking your thigh with the butt of his spear. The man in front has dropped his, and now it's tangling with your ankles like a haunted rake. Somewhere to your left, someone screams the word trebuchet, before realizing there are no trebuchets, just a catapult that collapsed 3 days ago and now serves as a urinal. The first thing that hits you is not, as you feared, a blade or an arrow. It's a stone. A small, ordinary stone, thrown by a child. Probably, it clocks you just above the temple and knocks your hood askew. The world tilts. The mud rushes up to meet you. You recover, barely. And you think this is it. This is how it starts. Then you hear a whistle, sharp and fast, followed by a sound like fabric tearing underwater. Arrows, not the elegant whispering kind from films. These make a sound like 1,000 nails being dropped from a tower. They don't fly in neat arcs. They shriek, they wobble, they ricochet. They do not care where they land. Somewhere nearby, a man is impaled through the shoulder. He doesn't fall, just stands there, stunned, as if trying to remember whether this is normal. Another drops to his knees, not from a wound, but because his helmet slipped and he can't see. He shouts for help. No one helps. Everyone is busy screaming. Your shield, if you have one, is a roughly hewn slab of wood bound with iron, and it weighs about as much as a small ox. You try to lift it, but your arm is already sore from carrying your spear. You lower it again. Your logic is sound. If you're going to die, you'd at least like to see it coming. Then, a sound you will never forget. The arrival of cavalry. There is no preparing for it. One moment, the field is full of soggy men. The next, it's thunder and hooves, and the absolute certainty that something much larger than you is coming very, very fast. Horses do not gallop gently. They do not dodge. They do not care if you are in the way. And the men riding them, they're not all knights. Some are drunk. Some are out of work. Some are mercenaries who've never seen a horse until yesterday. But they are high up, armored and angry. They swing axes the size of door hinges and laugh like it's a tavern brawl. The man next to you gets clipped by a stirrup and is instantly no longer a man, but a very quiet pile of parts. You are not brave. You are not noble. You duck. Your spear is gone. You don't know when you dropped it. You are now armed with nothing. Your shield, gone. You're gripping mud. Someone throws up on your back. The cavalry passes. You're somehow still alive. You crawl to your knees. Your breath is ragged. Your vision blurred. You look around and realize that, in all the chaos, you have accidentally wandered into the enemy's line. You're now facing a row of very angry men who think you are trying to flank them. They are wrong, but it doesn't matter. One raises a club made from a fence post. Another hurls a rock. A third just screams and charges, eyes wild, teeth red. And just before impact, you have a single, perfect thought. I should have stayed in the 21st century. The man charging you is missing 2 teeth and possibly a few morals. He's not wearing much, armor just a leather strap across his chest, and what looks like a baking tray strapped to one thigh. His club is jagged, notched, and stained a color you don't want to identify. He swings, you flinch. You don't parry. Parrying is something people in stories do. You twist your body in what you imagine is a heroic pirouette, but probably looks more like you're being tasered. His club catches your arm anyway. There's a sound, somewhere between a crack and a squish. Your scream is embarrassing. You collapse onto one elbow. The pain is dull at first, then sharp, then warm. Something is wet. You hope it's just mud. It is not, but miraculously, you are not dead. That would be too easy. You are instead writhing on the ground, watching a pair of enemy boots step over you, uninterested. You are no longer a threat. You are now terrain. Around you, the rhythm of violence continues like badly timed jazz. Shouts, metal, fists. Someone is praying, loudly, in entirely the wrong language. Someone else is asking where his wife is. You do not know whether this is literal or metaphorical. There are bodies everywhere, some still moving, some definitely not. You begin to realize how much of battle is not battle at all, but slipping, bleeding, dragging, and crawling. The field smells different now, less like sweat, more like iron and rot. Your head swims. You try to crawl toward what you think might be your own side, but there's no way to tell anymore. Your team colors were brown and gray, so is everyone else. You try to ask for help. No one answers. A man stumbles toward you. You flinch, but he's not attacking. He's bleeding from the nose, holding one arm at a strange angle, and staring at nothing. He sits beside you. You share a moment. Two broken men in a field of broken men. He offers you something from a pouch. You take it. Dried peas. They taste like sorrow and gravel. You both sit in silence. Around you, the sounds of war begin to dull not from peace, but from distance. The main clash has moved on. You've been left behind, not out of malice, but logistics. You're no longer useful. You're now debris. You try to stand. Bad idea. The world tilts again. Your legs scream. The broken arm swings uselessly. You drop back to your knees and consider your options. Crawl to safety. Play dead and hope. Actually die. Number 2 is looking very attractive, but then you see him, a young squire, barely a teenager, running across the field with a waterskin and terror in his eyes. He's looking for his knight. He trips over a corpse. You wave weakly. He sees you, hesitates, then kneels beside you. He doesn't speak your language, but you don't need words. He gives you a drink. It's wine, sour and smoky. You cough. He winces. Then, awkwardly, he begins to bind your arm with a strip torn from his own sleeve. You are now officially being field-treated by a medieval intern. He stands, unsure. You grab his wrist, not to stop him, just to say thank you. He nods, then vanishes into the smoke. And you lie there, propped against a log oar. Is it a body, watching the sky shift from grey to bruised blue? You survived, technically, but you're not who you were an hour ago. That person was whole. That person was clean. That person thought this would be cinematic. You want to cry, but it hurts to breathe. So you just close your eyes and try to imagine the sound of something other than death. Later minutes, hours, maybe longer, you wake to the sound of wings. Crows, mostly. A murder of them, appropriately enough. They descend like royalty, slow and confident, picking their way across the battlefield with the ease of those who have feasted here before. One perches on a nearby shield. It stares at you with the unblinking confidence of a creature who knows it will outlive empires. You try to shoo it. Your hand barely lifts. It's enough. It flaps once and lands 2 feet away, still watching. You suspect it's made a reservation on your ribcage, just in case. The battle is over. You don't need to be told. You can feel it in the air, the way it has thickened, quieted. There's no more shouting, no more galloping, just the low background moan of the wounded and the soft crunch of scavengers. You sit up, groaning. The pain is still there, but distant now, like someone else's memory. You look down and realize your tunic is soaked in blood. Some of it yours, some not. A strange, meaty rainbow of misery. No one comes for you. You think, perhaps, someone will, a medic, a priest, a bard with a well-timed ballad. But this isn't a story. This is Tuesday, and you are not important. You are one of dozens or hundreds littering the field. The ones who didn't die quickly or cleanly. The ones who might yet survive long enough to regret it. You crawl toward what, you're not sure. There's a tree line, maybe shade, maybe water. maybe bandits. Honestly, you don't care. Your hand touches something soft, fabric. You look down and see a standard flag trampled and stained. You can't tell whose it was, yours, theirs. It flutters once in the breeze and you think, this was supposed to mean something. This was supposed to be glorious, but it's not. It's cloth and mud and spilled teeth. You keep crawling. Eventually, you find the body of a knight. Full armor, polished once, long ago. His helmet is off. His face is peaceful in a way that feels unfair. His hands are clasped around the hilt of a sword, as if posing for some future statue. You hate him a little. Not because he's dead, but because he looks good doing it. You lie next to him for a while. Not for comfort, just for symmetry. And as the sun begins to set behind a line of ruined hedgerows, painting the field in gold and rust, you understand something that no book or ballad ever told you. There is nothing romantic about this. No epic tale, no noble end. No chorus of angels or divine purpose. Just men killing men in the mud, for land they don't own, for lords they've never met. In a war no one will remember clearly. You're alive, but you don't know if that's the better outcome. You close your eyes, just for a moment, just to rest. Around you, the crows begin to gather again. They're patient, and they know you'll stop moving soon. Let's pretend, for a moment, that you survived the battle. Maybe you weren't stabbed, crushed, or set on fire. Maybe you ducked at the right moment, crawled in the right direction, or simply looked too pathetic to waste a sword stroke on. Whatever your method of evasion, you've lived to see another dawn. Congratulations. Now the real horror begins. Because now you have to heal. And that means confronting one of medieval life's most persistent betrayals. The belief that filth is next to godliness. There is no bath waiting for you. No hot meal, no clean bandages. There might be a river nearby, but it's full of blood, frogs, and a dead ox named Hugo. You consider wading in any way, until you see a soldier squatting upstream and decide otherwise. Your arm, still broken, still wrapped in peasant boy fabric, is beginning to swell. It itches. That's a good sign, right? Maybe. Or maybe the infection has already set in. Maybe the little black ants crawling across your tunic aren't ants at all, but fleas. Maybe your skin is staging a quiet rebellion. You haven't washed in days, weeks, possibly. Your clothes are caked with blood, excrement, sweat, and something green that smells like boiled onions. You don't remember eating onions, but the smell is here, thick and permanent. You pass a man who smells worse. He's missing an eye and most of his teeth. You give him a nod of respect. He returns it with a grin, so wide it might be a scream. Here's the truth. Medieval people did clean themselves. Sort of, but not the way you'd hope. Not with soap, not really. Not with running water, not. Unless you lived near a well that wasn't cursed, poisoned, or reserved for the livestock. Most baths were bucket-based and involved a quick splash behind the ears. Anything more thorough was either sinful, luxurious, or suspected of causing illness. Hot water opens the pores, lets the plague in so you stink. Everyone stinks. And the worst part, no one notices anymore. You've become nose-blind to your own decay. You are a mobile compost heap, a walking buffet for lice, ticks, and bacteria with Latin names. You scratch absently at your chest and feel something move. You stop scratching. In camp, there's a small bucket labeled latrine. It's been full since yesterday. No one wants to empty it. Instead, everyone just urinates near the bushes and prays the wind is merciful. You find a corner to relieve yourself and discover too late that it's already occupied by a man vomiting and a pig watching silently. You nod. The pig nods back. You've made a friend. There is a barber surgeon somewhere, probably drunk, possibly blind, who offers to look at your arm. He tells you to bite down on a piece of wood. You ask why. He says just in case, and begins sawing. You pass out. When you wake up, your arm is bandaged in strips of something that might once have been someone's socks. The pain is now sharp and personal. You consider dying, briefly, but even that feels like too much effort. You ask for water. You're handed beer. It's warm, sour, and the only sterile thing for miles. You drink it gratefully. Nearby, a man is plucking leeches from a bucket. He tells you they're for your wounds. You tell him to kindly choke on them. He laughs and applies them anyway. It is not dignity that keeps you going now. It is stubbornness, and possibly a mild fever. You are alive, but you are rotting, slowly, from the inside out. And no one, not even the pig, seems surprised. Let's imagine, foolishly, that you make it to the next day. Morning is not a sunrise and birdsong affair. It's a symphony of coughing, groaning, and the distant sound of someone very loudly losing an argument with diarrhea. You open your eyes to find a bug crawling across your eyelid. You do not scream. You simply flick it off, as one might shoo away an intrusive thought. This is your new normal. Your body feels like a condemned building. Everything creaks. Something leaks. There's a cold draft that lives in your spine now. Your broken arm is wrapped in a bandage so filthy it might have been used to clean a latrine. The wound has begun to ooze a yellowish fluid. You decide, with the weary dignity of the condemned, not to look too closely. Your mouth tastes like wet bread and regret. There is no toothbrush, no mint, no dental floss. You rinse with beer. It only makes it worse. Your gums bleed a little. You spit, and it comes out pink. Across camp, a man is attempting to shave with a knife. He is not succeeding. You suspect he will soon be dead or fashionable. It's hard to say. Nearby, a group of soldiers is boiling their underclothes over a fire. Not to clean them, just to kill the lice. The smell is indescribable. A mix of wet wool, human oil, and a sort of steamed rot that makes you question the future of civilization. You consider doing the same. But your underclothes are already stiff from yesterday's rain, and what you hope is mud. You hang them on a stick and hope the wind is feeling charitable. You scratch again. Something squishes. There is a stream nearby. You wander down to it, limping like a man twice your age. The water is cold, brown, and filled with fish who look mildly disappointed in you. You splash your face. It burns. You consider washing more of yourself, but the smell from upstream says otherwise. Someone is soaking a bandage. Someone else is pooping. A third person appears to be baptizing a rat. You return to camp, wetter and sadder. A monk wanders through with a bag of herbs. He offers you a sprig of something bitter and claims it will draw the bad humors. You eat it. It tastes like moss and broken promises. You do not feel better, but you do feel slightly less alive, which is close enough. Your wounds fester. Your clothes itch. Your feet are beginning to blister in patterns that resemble maps of cursed places. You urinate once and it smells like roasted garlic. You do not know what this means. You do not ask. There is a rumor that someone nearby has a bar of real soap, made from animal fat and ashes. It's guarded like treasure. Someone offers to trade a silver coin for a sniff. The offer is declined. You scratch again. You do not remember the last time your skin was not on fire. A man collapses beside you. He does not get back up. No one moves to help. Someone throws a blanket over him, not out of mercy, just to keep the flies from getting too excited. You watch the sky darken again. Another day down. Another day not dead. Another day closer to becoming soup for the worms. You lie down, wrapped in lice and your own smell, and think, this was supposed to be about glory. You are starting to suspect they lied. By the end of your first week, assuming you've survived that long. And if so, congratulations, you've stopped thinking of yourself as a person and started thinking of yourself as a slowly decomposing ecosystem. Your hair, once a symbol of youth or vanity, is now a bustling metropolis of lice. You name the largest one Gregory. He seems to be in charge. His empire stretches from your temple to the nape of your neck, and he is expanding rapidly. You're not even angry. Honestly, you're impressed. You find fleas in your socks, ticks in your sleeves, and something unidentifiable living inside your boot. You try to evict it, but it hisses and retreats deeper. You decide to let it stay. It's nice to have a roommate. Bathing is a theoretical concept, talked about in songs, joked about in passing. Remember bathing? Someone says one morning. The whole camp laughs, long and loud and slightly unhinged. No one remembers, not really, just the idea of it. Warm water, steam, the absence of insects. It feels like a dream someone else had. You do your best. You try wiping yourself down with damp cloth. It spreads the filth evenly. You try scraping with a dull knife. You cut yourself. You try rolling in the grass like a dog. A dog watches you and looks away, embarrassed. Your clothes have fused to your skin in places. Removing them would be more surgery than laundry. You contemplate starting over, walking into a nearby fire and being reborn like some kind of medieval phoenix, covered in ash, slightly cleaner. You see a nobleman walk by. He smells like rosewater and arrogance. You hate him, not because he's cruel though he is, but because he doesn't itch. You suspect he has a private basin, possibly his own soap, possibly two. You begin plotting a coup. You abandon it when you realize standing up too fast makes you dizzy. Every surface in camp is a biohazard. The communal cooking pot has not been cleaned since the battle of somewhere unpronounceable. It bubbles ominously. No one knows what's in it. No one asks. Everyone eats it. At night, you hear scratching. Not from animals, from people. Dozens of men clawing at themselves in the dark. It's the camp's lullaby. Scritch, scritch, sigh. A shared ritual. Sometimes someone mutters, I think they're in my ears. No one contradicts them. The silence is agreement. One man breaks, strips naked, runs into the woods screaming about ants and shame. No one follows. He returns 2 days later with pine needles in his beard and the 1,000-yard stare of a man who has seen too much bark. You welcome him back. You offer him the cleanest patch of mud you can find. He thanks you, then throws up. Your arm wound has developed a personality. It speaks to you in dreams. Sometimes it asks for ointment. Sometimes it just sobs softly. You try herbal poultices. They attract bees. You try prayer. You get silence. You try ignoring it. It retaliates with fever. You hallucinate once briefly. You see your mother holding a basin of warm water and smiling. You reach for her. It's a possum. The possum bites you. By now, you've accepted that this is not a temporary lapse in hygiene. This is your state of being. You are not a man. You are a sponge made of filth and fading hope. You close your eyes, and Gregory moves across your brow with regal confidence. You are no longer in charge. You wake up in a puddle. This is not a metaphor. It is not poetic. You are literally lying in a shallow basin of rainwater, blood, and whatever fluid your arm has decided to produce today. The puddle is warm. That's the worst part. It shouldn't be warm. You try to move, but your limbs are reluctant. They creak like old wood and feel as though they've been packed in sawdust. Your joints are stiff. Your skin tender. You press your hand to your temple and find a new bumper known, unnamed, unwelcome. Welcome to the real war. The one happening inside your body. Infection is not a question of if. It's a question of what flavor. You might get gangrene. You might get trench rot. You might get something that doesn't even have a name, yet something local, unnamed, but very efficient. The medieval immune system is a blindfolded man with a shovel. Sometimes he wins. Mostly, he just digs. Your broken arm has turned a delightful shade of purplish yellow. The edges of the wound are puffed up like a pastry. You think it might be oozing sugar. You poke it. A smell escapes. You vomit quietly, then apologize to no one. Across the camp, another man is being treated for a wound that started as a scratch and became a crater. The barber surgeon approaches it with a hot knife and a chant that might be Latin or just panic. The man screams. The barber laughs. Everyone claps. You do not. You hear whispers about cauterization, about amputation. You start sleeping with your arm under your blanket, like a guilty secret. You don't want anyone getting ideas. You try leeches again. This time they fall off, disgusted. Even parasites have standards. A priest comes by with holy water. He blesses your forehead and mutters something about divine will. You ask if divine will involves pus. He does not answer. He just blesses you again. Louder this time. Someone suggests honey. Someone else suggests urine. You consider both. The urine wins. It's warm, salty, and as sterile as anything you'll find out here. You pretend it's a spa treatment. You cry a little. Not because it hurts, just because this is your life now. You dream of soap, real soap, with lavender. You dream of a bath so hot it peels away everything you've become. You dream of someone lifting you from the water, wrapped in linen, kissed on the brow, and told it's all over. You wake up covered in beetles. You are now part of the ecosystem, a warm, moist habitat for things that click and crawl and do not ask permission. Your comrades give you a nickname, Rot Boy. You accept it. It's better than Puddle Man. One of them tries to cheer you up by showing you his toe. It's black. He calls it Sir Stomsalot. You laugh, then cry, then laugh again. You start to pray not for health, but for indifference. You ask the gods to let you stop noticing, to dull the edge of awareness, to blur the line between skin and earth. You are not clean. You will never be clean again. But maybe, just maybe, you can learn to stop caring. The fever comes quietly, like a lover in the dark. At first, you think it's just the weather, or maybe the campfire's gone out. You shiver once, then twice. Your teeth chatter, but it could be nerves, or trauma, or the mild, persistent dread that's become your background music. But then your thoughts start to unravel. They arrive late. They stick in the doorway. They forget why they came. You stare at your hands and forget which one is broken. You try to speak and the words feel sticky, like your mouth is full of syrup and dust. Your breath comes in shallow gulps. You're sweating despite the chill. Your skin radiates heat, but you feel like you're buried in snow. You pull your blanket tighter. It's damp, itchy, and smells like soup. Not good soup. The kind that's been left on a windowsill for a week and now has opinions. Someone notices. A comrade. Maybe Jeff. Maybe not. They touch your forehead and make a noise like a dying kettle. They offer water. You ask for wine. They give you broth. It tastes like disappointment and herbs. The camp mutters. Fever is a bad sign. Fever means infection, yes, but more than that. Fever means unclean, unwell, unlucky. You are becoming a liability. No one says it, but everyone knows. The longer you burn, the closer you drift toward becoming a corpse. And corpses are contagious. You feel them distancing already. Men who once shared bread now glance sideways. The monk stops blessing you. The boy with the herbs avoids your gaze. You are marked. You hear the word quarantine, or whatever medieval version of it exists. Send him to the edge. Give him to the mud. Let God decide. You are still lucid barely. You beg not to be moved. You swear you'll get better. You promise to drink more water, to change your bandages, to stop scratching. Lies, you know it. They know it. They carry you anyway, to the far end of camp, past the cooks, past the fire, past the sleeping dogs and the pile of unclaimed helmets. They lay you under a tree, half covered in leaves and guilt. They do not say goodbye. They leave you with a flask, a crust of bread, and an apology spoken to the ground. You drift. Your dreams are heavy and wet. You relive the battle, but everything is slower. Arrows hang in the air like birds. The mud pulls at your ankles like hands. The crows speak. One tells you you've been chosen. You believe it. Your body spasms. You lose time, hours, maybe days. When you wake, the world is quiet. The fever has broken. Or maybe you have. You sit up slowly. The ground is cold. Your lips are cracked. You taste iron. Your arm is worse, or better. Hard to say, it no longer hurts. That's probably bad. You look around. You are alone. Utterly, majestically, filthily alone. You made it through the worst of it. Not because you're strong, not because you prayed, but because your body, despite all logic, decided to keep breathing. You want to laugh, you want to scream. Instead, you whisper, I lived. A beetle crawls out of your sleeve, and you whisper again, for what? There is a strange comfort in believing your enemies are the only ones who wish you harm. It makes things tidy, us and them, right and wrong. A sword in the front, never the back. But war has never been tidy, and the people most likely to end your short, scratchy life on a medieval battlefield were not wearing different colors. They were standing right next to you, sharing your bread, stealing your socks, screaming the same prayers to the same indifferent sky. Friendly fire is a modern term. In the medieval world, it was just ... Tuesday. Let's start with weapons. These weren't smart bombs or laser-guided anything. These were hammers, clubs, arrows, spears, and swords swung by men with blurred vision, shaky hands, and enough fear in their guts to drown a horse. In the heat of battle, no one had time to check your tabard. They saw movement. They swung. You remember Jeff. Jeff with the cross-eyed stare and the perpetual nosebleed. Jeff once killed a man on his own side because the man sneezed too loudly. Another time, a knight turned sharply on his horse and decapitated a foot soldier with his stirrup. It wasn't even intentional. Just physics, mixed with arrogance, mixed with 4 gallons of mead from the night before. There are records, actual, written chronicles, of entire units getting wiped out because someone panicked and shouted, "They're flanking us." when in fact it was just the next wave of reinforcements arriving late. Arrows, oh, the arrows. They're supposed to fly over your head. That's the theory, but theory dies quickly in mud. Archers in medieval battles were often stationed behind the main line. They'd let loose a volley, beautiful, coordinated, deadly, and then watch in horror as the wind changed or someone in the front line stepped backward at exactly the wrong time. Rain made it worse. Wind made it tragic. Panic made it inevitable. There's one story, probably apocryphal, but too delicious not to believe, of a battle in which archers were told to aim high, but misheard it as aim high. 27 men blinded, all on the same side. Then there's the cavalry. Nothing strikes terror like the sound of hooves behind you. Unfortunately, your side's horses didn't always get the memo about loyalty. A startled charger could plow through friend and foe alike. You'd hear the screams, turn, and see Sir Hugh barreling toward you with a broken lance and no concept of brakes. Your options: duck and pray, or die with the dubious honor of being impaled by your own banner. Even the aftermath wasn't safe. Once the battle ended, looting began. Soldiers weren't paid well or at all, so they scavenged. And if you were wounded, bleeding, but still breathing, you were just in the way. Or worse, mistaken for a corpse with valuable boots. Many a man survived the sword only to be stabbed during cleanup, not out of cruelty, just business. You tried to scream, "I'm alive," but so were hundreds of others, and death is quieter, easier, so you lay still, held your breath, and hoped Jeff wasn't looting today. There's a strange moment that happens just before you get struck by mistake, by confusion, or by Jeff. It's the moment where your brain tries to make sense of something that isn't supposed to be happening. You see a blade. It's not pointed at the enemy. It's swinging your way. Your first thought is, he must be turning around. Your second thought is, no, that's definitely aimed at me. Your third thought is, Jeff, you absolute bastard. It's never personal. That's the part that stings, somehow. You don't die in a blaze of glory, facing down your foe with a noble curse and a gleaming sword. You die because Jeff panicked, because Thomas slipped, because a new recruit with a poleaxe mistook your silhouette for someone else's, because someone yelled the wrong thing. And now everyone's bleeding. You might be trampled by your own retreating line, or kicked by a panicked mule hauling supplies. You might be mistaken for a deserter and shot with an arrow before you can explain. You might even die because someone had a hangover and thought you were a hallucination. One man, in an infamous skirmish outside Dijon, was killed when his comrade sneezed while loading a crossbow. The bolt went through his neck. It's written in a letter. The writer called it an act of God. Another soldier died because he stood too close to a knight mid-swing. The knight was showing off, practicing his form. The squire watching said it was an elegant move. No one remembered the name of the man whose skull got split. You get the sense the battlefield is less choreography, more stampede. No clean lines, no crisp orders. Just a mass of damp, frightened humanity trying to remember which way is forward. And in that mass, everyone is a threat, even the ones wearing your crest. There's a brutal irony in it. The ones sworn to protect you are also the ones most likely to take you out by accident. The man you drank with, wept with, bled with, he's now the one swinging wildly because his visor fogged up and he thought you were someone else. You see it in their eyes afterward. The shame, the silence. Sometimes they bury you. Sometimes they pretend they didn't notice. One man buried his friend, then wore his boots. he cried the whole time. Another made a joke, said, well, he always did walk into things, laughed until the tears came. The battlefield doesn't care about blame. It's a place of chaos, of blurred lines and bloodied faces and too many voices all shouting at once. You carry a sword, but it has no loyalty. You wear colors, but they fade in the mud. And Jeff, bless him, is still out there swinging, screaming, surviving. And maybe, one day, someone will write your name in a ledger and cross it out, because Jeff meant well. Imagine this. You're standing in a shallow ditch. The sky is the color of old meat. Your boots are soaked through with a mixture of water, blood, and what you hope is just turnip stew. You haven't eaten in 2 days. Your right ear is ringing from the last clash. Your arm still itches where the lice have laid siege. And then the order comes down, advance. You blink. Advance where? No one knows. There's no map, no flag waving in the distance. Just a vague gesture from a man on a horse who probably hasn't touched the ground in weeks. He shouts against something about glory, something about God. You can't hear him over the thunder in your chest, but you move anyway, because standing still gets you trampled. You surge forward, or sideways, or possibly backwards. Someone just shoved you, and you've stepped on a man's hand. He doesn't scream, he just glares. You mouth sorry and keep going. This is the thing about medieval orders. They don't come with instructions. They're broad strokes painted across a canvas made of mud and fear. Hold the line, flank the left, cover the rear. You barely know which way is north. Cover the rear once got an entire regiment killed because someone thought it meant retreat. They ran, others followed. The commander panicked and called it treason. Half were hanged. The other half died in the charge. Flank left led to a cavalry unit being wiped out because the left was a bog. Horses don't like bogs. Men don't like drowning. But once the order is given, there's no rewinding the carnage. And then there are the preemptive strikes. Those are the best, where your commander decides to hit before the enemy's ready. Surprise them, seize the advantage. Except you aren't ready. You haven't slept. You haven't eaten. You're still bandaging yesterday's stab wound. And suddenly, you're being shoved into a clearing with a rusty sword and no helmet, told to make it count. Count what? The seconds until you're impaled. The friends you trip over. The body parts that don't make it back. Sometimes, the orders contradict each other. One captain says, hold. Another says, charge. You end up running in circles, bumping into your own lines, until someone screams that you're all cowards and fires an arrow to prove a point. That arrow hits a cook. The cook was holding soup. Now there's blood and lentils everywhere, and you still don't know who you're fighting. One of the most fatal things on a medieval battlefield was not the sword, or the arrow, or even the plague. It was confusion, pure, distilled human miscommunication. A shouted order misheard, a trumpet call misinterpreted, a signal flag obscured by smoke. And when it goes wrong, and it always goes wrong, there are no debriefings, no apologies, just more mud, more blood, more graves. The history books won't tell you this part. They'll talk about tactical brilliance, about heroic charges, about valor and sacrifice. They won't mention that the man leading the charge wasn't told the bridge had collapsed. They won't write about the hundreds who died because the drummer boy had a cold and played the wrong rhythm. They won't tell you that you died because the man behind you thought he heard retreat and stabbed you to keep you from running. And the worst part, you didn't even want to be here. Let's talk about paperwork. Not the kind you sign in ink with a signature and a sigh. Not contracts or oaths. The medieval battlefield's version of bureaucracy is cruder, wetter, and usually ends with you in a hole. You were volunteered, remember? Which is to say, your name was read aloud in a village square while you tried to pretend you were somewhere else. Or your lord needed a tax break and offered your body in exchange for grain. Or you lost a bet. Or you owed someone a pig. No one asked if you knew how to fight. No one cared if you could hold a sword. The assumption was that you had limbs, lungs, and at least one, congratulations. You were now a soldier. You weren't trained. You were assigned. Assigned to a unit you didn't know, led by a man who didn't know you, fighting for a cause no one bothered to explain. You were handed a pike and pointed in the general direction of violence. And if you asked questions, you were told to shut up and follow orders. Orders that, more often than not, made no sense. One regiment was once ordered to march south by east for reinforcements. They arrived 2 weeks late, on the wrong continent, having fought a completely different war along the way. The commander was knighted. The soldiers were buried. There's a story, half legend, half truth, of a unit that accidentally charged itself. They were split into 2 flanks. Both were told to circle wide and meet in the middle. They did, with spears. No survivors. Then there were the flags, a noble favorite. Every house had its own banner, its own colors, its own symbol. Lions, griffins, aggressive vegetables. And you were supposed to recognize them in the thick of smoke, blood, rain, and the occasional severed limb flying past your face. But no one standardized the damn things. Half the flags looked the same, red with stripes, blue with dots. One with a bear that looked suspiciously like a pig. You couldn't tell friend from foe unless they were already stabbing you, and even then, it was 50-50. You tried to ask for clarification once. A herald told you, "Ours is the one with the flaming chicken." You blinked. He pointed. There it was, a glorious, absurd, furious chicken. Mid-combustion, you laughed. Then you got hit in the head by someone flying the same bird. The real kicker. Chain of command. You didn't know who was in charge. Not really. There were knights, squires, lords, and someone calling himself captain of rainwater who might have just been drunk. Orders came from everywhere and nowhere. You once got to commands within a minute. Hold the line and retreat immediately. You chose hold. So did 5 others. The rest ran. You stood there, shouting, "What now?" The enemy answered with arrows. That's how bureaucracy kills you in war. Not with red tape, with red blood. Pooled in the dirt, spilled by someone who thought they were following the rules. And even if you survive, even if by some divine intervention you stagger out alive, lice-ridden and limping, no one thanks you, no one pays you. Your name is misspelled in the records, if it appears at all, and someone else gets credit for your kill. Probably Jeff. Here's a question that never gets asked in the chronicles. How many medieval men died trying to help? You know, those poor souls who saw someone fall, turned back to offer a hand, and got a sword through the ribs for their trouble. Because the truth is, gestures of kindness didn't go unpunished in medieval warfare. They went unrewarded, unrecorded, and often misunderstood as acts of treason, confusion, or demonic possession. You once tried to stop a man from bleeding out, wrapped a cloth around his thigh, whispered something like, "Hold on." You don't remember, exactly. Your teeth were chattering, and your brain was filled with cotton. A moment later, another soldier on your side saw you hunched over the body and assumed the worst. Thought you were looting, or finishing him off, or whispering enemy secrets. You were nearly killed, and the worst part, that man was promoted the next day. for discipline in the field. Mistaken identity was a death sentence. Everyone looked the same. Everyone smelled the same. Everyone was covered in the same splatter pattern of blood, dirt, bile, and regret. You could try shouting, "I'm with you," or "Don't stab me, please." But in the chaos, it all sounded like screaming. And anyway, half the soldiers didn't speak the same dialect. Some were mercenaries from places you've never heard of. One of your own comrades might have been named Bjorn, or Brian, or something in between. A man once died because he had the same haircut as the enemy. That's it. That's the whole story. A shaggy fringe and a regrettable cowlick. 3 swords to the chest. The chronicler simply wrote, "He was mistaken." Heroics made it worse. If you tried to be brave, you rushed into the melee to save someone, retrieve a banner, or drag a wounded knight to safety. You became a moving target, a blur, and the blur was always suspect. Why is he running? Must be deserting, or charging, or possessed. Best stab him just in case. It happened more than you'd think. One noble's son, barely 16, died while dragging his fallen brother off the field. A squire saw him, panicked, and drove a spear through his spine. The family blamed the fog. The squire was exonerated. The brother died anyway, alone. But you don't hear those stories in the ballads. You hear about valiant last stands and noble sacrifices. You hear about loyalty, courage, unity. You don't hear about the man who took a mace to the face because he wore his helmet backward, or the archer who loosed a perfect volley straight into the backs of his own men because no one told him they'd advanced, or the cook who died screaming under a horse because someone mistook his ladle for a weapon. These aren't tragedies in the grand, operatic sense. They're footnotes, they're punchlines, but they're real, and they remind you that war isn't won by heroes. It's lost, mostly, by mistake. You are here, you are alive. And if you survive until dusk, it won't be because you were brave. It will be because no one accidentally killed you today. Let's talk about the part of the battlefield no one bothers to describe. Not the swords, not the fire, not the screaming men with flails and terrible poetry tattooed across their chests. Let's talk about the ground. Because the ground hates you. You think you've fought enemies before. Bandits, rival soldiers, the black-eyed archer who aimed like he had a grudge against geometry. Forget them. The earth beneath your feet is the real war. Mud is not just wet dirt, not out here. Not in the midst of medieval combat. Out here, mud is a living thing. It eats shoes. It eats swords. It eats horses. It pulls at your ankles like a drunk friend trying to drag you into a grave. And the worst part, you helped make it. You and 1,000 other terrified men, stomping and sweating and bleeding into a patch of field that was already soaked from last week's storm. Every step churns it deeper. Every fall thickens it. By the second hour of fighting, the battlefield looks less like solid ground and more like a failed attempt at porridge. You try to run, you don't. Your foot catches. Your leg sinks. You pull. The mud resists. You pull harder. It makes a sound like a kiss and releases your boot without your foot. You fall forward. Your hands vanish up to the wrist. The cold seeps into your bones. You flail. You scream. A man stumbles over you and apologizes by accident. You crawl to a patch of grass. Few can find one and lay there like a beached animal. The grass smells like rot and cheap wine. You are not sure you'll ever stand again. Mud is democratic. It doesn't care if you're a knight or a peasant, mounted or barefoot. It takes everyone. Horses go down screaming. Squires vanish mid-sentence. A drummer boy once fell face first and didn't come up. The drum kept rolling. That's how they found him. And once you're down, good luck getting back up. There's no one to help you. Everyone is busy stabbing or being stabbed or pretending to be dead. You try to push off with your elbow. The elbow sinks. You try to roll. You hear something in your shoulder pop. You finally stand in now. Your hands are brown. Your face is streaked. Your mouth is full of something that might be mud, might be manure, probably both. You spit. It doesn't help. Worse still is the smell. Mud soaked in blood and bile and the slop from someone's chamber pot dumped uphill that morning. You can taste it. You can feel it under your nails, inside your sleeves, behind your eyeballs. It doesn't leave you, not at camp. Not after a splash in the river. Not even weeks later, when you've returned home and tried to scrub your skin pink. There's always a trace, a lingering scent, a little reminder, just under the fingernails, that the battlefield never fully lets you go. And the next time someone tells you about gallant knights charging across open fields, sword raised, banner flying, you'll think of that one time you watched a duke disappear up to his waist in horse piss and cry for his mother. And you'll laugh, softly, because no one talks about the mud. But you remember. In a world of blades and blunt trauma, falling over doesn't sound like the worst thing that could happen to you, until it happens. Falling isn't just undignified, it's a full-body betrayal. 1 second you're upright, charging, yelling something heroic that might have been for the king, or my boots are on fire. And the next second you're down, and down is bad. Down is fatal. Down is where you meet the mud with your mouth. Because you don't fall in isolation. You fall with 40 pounds of rusting armor, 2 pounds of lice, and the weight of every bad decision that led you here. You fall face first into someone's boot print, into a puddle that might be water, might be blood, might be soup, and no one sees you. Or if they do, they don't stop. They leap over you, trip over you, stomp on you. If you're lucky, they don't notice at all. If you're unlucky, they think you're the enemy. Which is how you end up with a spear in your back from a well-meaning farmer named Jory, who apologizes while trying to yank it back out. It gets stuck. You both scream. Eventually, he gives up and calls it part of you now. Getting up sounds easy. It's not. Your limbs don't work. Your vision is blurred. One boot is still somewhere in the muck. Your arms are shaking from effort and terror, and the knowledge that, statistically, most of the men who fall in battle are already dead before they can blink. You try to crawl. The ground sucks at you like a hungry creature. You try to roll. You roll directly into another man's leg. He kicks reflexively. You see stars. Somewhere above, the battle still rages. Horses whinny. Metal clangs. A man is shouting the name Margaret repeatedly. You assume she's not here. Another man lands beside you with a noise like a sack of potatoes dropped from a roof. He's not moving. You reach for him, just to make sure. He groans. You both lie there. There is a strange intimacy in being helpless beside a stranger. You don't speak. You don't move. You just share breath and blood, and the awareness that neither of you can get up. And if you do, you'll probably be stabbed in the throat by someone misreading your intentions. The rain starts again. Of course it does. Everything gets slicker. The mud thickens. Someone yells, "Push forward," and is immediately trampled by a dozen men with no sense of direction. You close your eyes and imagine the sky. You hear someone laughing. You open one eye. It's the man beside you. His helmet is dented, his arm broken, his teeth stained red. He says, "At least I don't have to march anymore." You laugh too. You can't help it. The two of you lie there, half dead, covered in muck, and giggling like children who've broken something expensive. Because there's a freedom in falling. No one expects anything from you now. You're not a soldier. You're not a hero. You're just a stain in the earth. And for a moment, just a moment, that feels like enough. You didn't think it was possible to drown on land. Not really. Not with your face pointed up and your lungs still doing their best. You thought drowning was a problem for sailors, for shipwrecks, for men who got too close to rivers that didn't like them. But here, in the middle of a trampled field, with battle smoke on the wind and rain sliding off the sky like spilled wine, you learned something new. You can drown in a puddle. You can drown in less than an inch of water if it has the right shape and the wrong timing. It starts with slipping. You don't even fall that hard, just enough to land face first in the mud. Your hands are slow, your legs won't work, your muscles scream. But the worst part is your mouth, how it fills instantly, how it plugs with muck and blood and some stranger's vomit. You try to lift your head, you can't. You try to turn it, you can't, because your helmet is too heavy, or your neck is too weak, or the man who fell on top of you is heavier than God, and twice as indifferent. You suck in a breath, and what comes in is not air. It is filth, liquid dirt, bits of leaf, something that might have been part of a sheep once. Your body convulses, you writhe, or you try to. Someone steps on your back. The pressure forces the mud deeper into your throat. You taste iron and fear, and your own mortality. For one long, burning second, you wonder if this is how it ends, not with a charge, or a sword, or a poetic final word, but with your face in a puddle and your backside to the sky, gasping for breath like a beached fish. You make a noise, a pathetic choking gurgle. No one hears it. No one's listening. You hear hoofbeats, a scream, laughter, someone playing a flute, maybe badly. Your vision darkens at the edges. You brace for the end. And then, by nothing short of a miracle, someone yanks you up by the scruff like a misbehaving dog. You emerge with a gasp that could split the air. Your lungs seize. You cough, mucus and soil, and something black comes up in a spasm of violence that's almost worse than the drowning. You collapse again, this time on your side. Your savior is already gone, vanished into the mist of war, and you never saw their face. You lie there, gasping, blinking against the rain, listening to the earth suck at your boots with every twitch. You realize the mud isn't just a problem. It's a predator. It waits. It remembers. It wants you back. And next time, it might not let go. You dig your fingers in. You push yourself upright. And you whisper to no one, not today, you bastard. Because, even now, even half dead, half mad, half submerged, you have pride. A dirty, stubborn, soaking wet pride. And that puddle is going to have to try harder. There is no such thing as a quick march in medieval warfare. Not when the ground groans beneath your every step. Not when your foot sinks half a boot deep and makes a sound like the end of hope. Not when you've already fallen 3 times and are beginning to suspect the mud is learning your name. It's not walking anymore. It's wading. Every pace forward feels like pulling free from a lover who doesn't want to let go. A cold, clammy, increasingly violent lover who smells like rot and regret. The kind of lover that would write you bad poetry and then drown you in a puddle out of spite. You lift your left foot, it rises with a slop. You lift your right foot, it doesn't rise. You fall again. Your face-down breath knocked out of you, armor weighing you down like a wet iron confession. You lie there a while, just to see if anyone notices. No one does. Someone steps on your thigh. You curse creatively, then laugh. This is it. This is the grand, glorious charge. This is the moment when your ancestors will look down from the heavens and say, "Is he seriously crying over mud?" You wipe your eyes with a gauntlet that only makes things worse. But you keep moving, not because you're brave, because if you stop, you'll never start again. You join the long, shuffling caravan of men, too stubborn to die and too stupid to flee, each one marching through the muck like they're being punished for existing. It's not just inconvenienced warping. Boots twist sideways, ankles snap, knees lock, groins pull. You hear someone behind you curse in a language you've never heard before. You hope it was a prayer. You pass a man stuck knee-deep, waving for help. You stop. You try to pull him out. The suction fights you like a demon. You both collapse into the same rut. You look at each other. You do not speak. You do not try again. You move on. Your feet are raw. The soles of your boots are peeling away like old bark. One is tied on with rope and the remnants of someone's sash. You don't know whose. You didn't ask. Your thighs burn. Your back aches. Your face is flecked with dried sweat and fly eggs. You long for solid ground the way some men long for home. The idea of a dry path now feels mythical, something bards will sing about, probably while standing in a puddle of their own. At camp, someone jokes, "If we had ships, we'd row to the enemy." Everyone laughs. It's not funny. You lie down that night on a bed of straw and squish. Something damp greets your spine. You do not investigate. Your dreams are slippery, unstable, filled with images of feet dragging through ooze, of boots floating by with no feet in them, of your mother asking why you didn't bring better shoes. You wake up cold, wet, and uncertain whether you ever actually slept. And as you trudge back toward the front, limping, squelching, praying, you realize you haven't seen dry ground in weeks. You're starting to forget what it felt like. You are not a soldier anymore. You are a very sad boat. There's this idea in painting's grand oil masterpieces hanging in dusty museums that medieval battlefields were somehow noble. Broad fields, rolling hills, maybe a castle in the distance, tastefully on fire. Rows of gleaming knights, horses caught mid-lap, banners fluttering like they practiced. But here's the truth. The battlefield is a swamp. A wet, stinking, misbegotten swamp, pretending it's something more, and everyone on it is slowly dissolving. The mud never ends. It clings to you like guilt. It sneaks into places it has no business being. Your ears, your mouth, your soul. At this point, you're more compost than man. You have become a walking mushroom farm. You may never be dry again. Your clothes hang off you like wet paper. Your undergarments, once merely unpleasant, have evolved into something fungal. You suspect they are plotting an uprising. You've begun to develop trench foot, despite not being in a trench. Your toes squish when you walk. You tell someone this. They say, "Mine fell off last week." He's not joking. You walk slower now. Everyone does. The earth sucks at your pace. It wants you to stay. It wants you to lie down, curl up, and become part of the scenery. One more lump in the field. One more bump for future soldiers to trip over. The dead do not lie still in this mud. They rise and sink again. The water brings them up like offerings. A hand, a face, a single boot with a toe still inside. You see these things as you march. You try not to look. You try harder not to step on them. You fail. There's a boy ahead of you, probably 16, probably lying about being older. He tries to leap a puddle, lands in it, vanishes to the knee. screams like a banshee. 2 others drag him out. He leaves his dignity and 1 shoe behind. He doesn't cry. He just mutters something about soup and keeps walking. You respect him immensely. It rains again. Of course it does. Rain doesn't fall anymore. It seeps from above, below, inside your very bones. You feel like a soaked loaf of bread that someone keeps stepping on. Everything smells like rot, sweet rot, the kind that sticks in your nostrils long after the wind has shifted, the kind that makes you forget what clean air ever felt like. You breathe through your mouth, then regret it. In the distance, you hear a horn. Your unit is called to move. You sigh. Another round of slogging, slipping, possibly dying. You stand, bracing for the inevitable. And as you do, you say aloud, to no one in particular, I will never, ever complain about rainy days again. The pig beside you snorts in agreement. Yes, there's a pig. No, you don't know where it came from, but it's the cleanest thing you've seen all day. You follow it, because somehow that feels like hope. It happens slowly, like most terrible things, not with a sword, or a scream, or a horse hurtling through your rib cage, but with a cough. Someone in camp coughs once, then twice, then they're gone. No fanfare, no burial. Just a pile of blankets that no one wants to touch anymore. This is the part they never show you in the paintings. After the swords are sheathed, after the banners are rolled up and the blood has congealed in the grass, after the battle is done, the dying begins. You survived. You should feel proud. You should feel lucky. But you feel ... damp and sore and slightly less human than you were yesterday. You can still hear the battle in your ears. Echoes, screams. That one man yelling to Valhalla as he fell into a trench filled with human waste. But now it's quiet. Now it's worse. The wounded moan softly. Flies gather. The ground is littered with men who aren't dead yet, but probably will be. Men who were perfectly fine an hour ago, but are now shivering, pale lips cracked, eyes unfocused. You hear a medic mutter the word flux, or maybe pox, or just uppo. You don't ask. You don't want to know, because here's the truth. Medieval warfare didn't kill you with weapons. It killed you with time. You didn't die charging the enemy. You died 2 weeks later because your fingernail got infected, or because the water in your flask came from a stream where a cow once exploded, or because your roommate, God bless him, sneezed on your bandages and now you're rotting from the inside. The camp reeks of vinegar, bile, and resignation. The barber surgeon walks by with his usual tools, a rusty saw, a stick to bite, and a flask of something he calls comfort juice. You do not make eye contact. Last time he looked at you too long, you lost a tooth. People start whispering about fevers, about swellings, about men whose tongues turned black before they stopped speaking entirely. You try not to notice. You fail. You count the rashes on your thigh. You pretend they're freckles. You pretend the blood in your phlegm is from yelling too much. You pretend the man next to you isn't staring blankly at the sky because he's already halfway to whatever comes next. There's no privacy, no hospitals, just a tarp, some rags, a bucket, and prayers, mostly whispered, sometimes screamed. The priest is doing his best, which is to say, he's digging graves ahead of schedule. Someone offers you garlic, someone else offers you a dead rat boiled into a stew. You eat both. You don't ask questions. You've reached the point where taste is irrelevant and dignity is optional. You start coughing, just once, but it echoes in your skull like a bell tolling. You look at your hands, they're shaking. You tell yourself, it's the cold. You tell yourself, it's fine. You do not believe yourself, because you know deep in the pit of your muddy, bleeding, rat-fed soul that this is the part that gets you, not the battle, not the blades, but the breath, and the waiting, and the terrible silence between coughs. At first, you think it's just the campfire, the haze, the sting in your eyes, the dry rasp at the back of your throat. You blame the smoke, the cold, the damp. You blame the shouting, the mud, the man next to you who hasn't stopped mumbling about frogs since Tuesday. But the air doesn't clear, the stinging stays, and then comes the smell, not just the usual battlefield bouquet bud, sweat, onions, despair. This is different, sweeter, rotting fruit, wet bread, the scent of something dying slowly and pretending not to. You breathe it in because you have no choice, and the air begins to rot you back. The men around you look ... off, pale in ways no human should be, green around the edges. Their eyes sink, their lips split, their skin begins to spot like overripe pears. You watch one scratch at a boil until it bursts. The pus is black. He laughs, then he weeps, then he doesn't move again. You retreat. Not far. There's nowhere to go but to a quieter patch of filth, under what used to be a tree. The bark is covered in initials carved by men who are now part of the scenery. You cough again, harder this time. There's blood. You wipe it on your sleeve, and the sleeve crumbles. You remember stories from childhood, about men turning to stone, to salt, to mist. You wonder what you're becoming. The priest holds service every night now. He doesn't read from scripture. He just names the dead. Sometimes he guesses. No one corrects him. There's a boy with a fever. They put him in a tent made of old cloaks. By morning, he's boiling. By noon, he's gone. The tent stays standing because no one wants to touch it. Flies hum over it like a choir. The surgeon starts to change, too. His hands tremble. His voice cracks. He offers amputation for a sore throat. You start hiding your injuries. Everyone does. You see men painting holy symbols on their shields with charcoal and spit. You see one man burning herbs in a boot, waving it like a censer. You see another stabbing a barrel of water because he swore he saw a demon in it. And you just try to breathe, shallow, quiet, as if the air won't notice you that way. You start counting coughs, your own, others. You rank them by tone, by violence, by finality. You hear one like a death rattle and think, that's a 10. The man who coughed, it doesn't stop. The healer brings garlic, honey, a dead pigeon. You ask what the pigeon is for. He says, companionship, then applies it to the wound. The man dies anyway. You start to wonder if anyone is well, if anyone has ever been well, and then you look up and see a bird flying, alone, clean, in the sky. And for a moment, you hate it, not because it flies, but because it isn't coughing. There's a moment somewhere around your third or fourth symptom when your standards begin to shift. A boil isn't alarming anymore. It's a point of interest. You touch it gently. You name it. You discuss it with your neighbors like it's a new pet. This one's got a friend, you say, pointing to the second lump blooming near your ribs. I think they're in love. Your friends nod respectfully. No one's laughing anymore. The camp's idea of sick has changed. You're not really sick unless you're frothing, twitching, or speaking in tongues. Everything else, that's just a bit of bad air. A case of the shakes. Some peasant nonsense that will clear up if you eat enough garlic and pray hard enough. One man's face is half paralyzed. He insists it's just the wind. Another's lost all his hair in 2 days. He calls it seasonal. You keep coughing. The blood in it has darkened. There's something stringy now. You don't ask. You don't tell. The healers are guessing. That's all they can do. They suggest warm compresses for open wounds and cold compresses for hot ones. You ask what to do for a wound that's both. They look at each other, then hand you a turnip. You accept it. You name the turnip hope. You carry it with you everywhere. Someone swears by honey, another swears by mold, a third swears by urine. You try all three. You lose track of which one was supposed to be applied topically. You drink the wrong one. You throw up for a full hour and decide, spiritually, that counts as penance. The barber surgeon has developed a tic. His eye twitches when you ask about fevers. He no longer uses tools, just his hands and his favorite knife, which he now talks to. You avoid him, but others aren't so lucky. You watch a man get his foot lanced. They say lanced like it's precise. It's not. It's a stab, a squeeze, a scream, and a prayer followed by 2 days of slow, moaning decline. By the end, the man is more whole than person. The tent he died in catches fire the next day. No one puts it out. You don't know why. You start to feel ... floaty, disassociated, like your body is continuing without you, and you're just a visitor now, watching your hands tremble, watching your legs buckle, watching your skin peel and darken and shift under your shirt. Someone asks if you're all right. You say, "I'm fine." They nod. Everyone says that now, "I'm fine," as their lips blister, as their teeth fall out, as their eyes yellow. You start saying it too, because the only thing worse than being sick in this camp is being seen to be sick. Because that means they'll stop sitting near you, stop talking to you, stop sharing bread. You'll be moved to the edge, where the flies gather, where the pigs root, where the bodies start to blur together after a while. You say, "I'm fine." You pet your turnip, and you hope no one notices the sores blooming on your back. Eventually, the fever takes hold. It doesn't ask permission. It doesn't knock politely. It doesn't ease in through a window or settle on you like a chill. It descends like night in a forest fire, fast, disorienting, and impossible to fight. One moment, you're sitting by the embers of a dying campfire, staring into the half-cooked remains of something that used to be a bird. The next, you're lying flat on your back, blinking up at a sky that keeps changing color. You're too hot, then too cold, then both, somehow, in warring halves of your body. Your right side sweats. Your left shivers. Your mouth is dry, but your skin is soaked. You can feel your pulse in your teeth. Voices blur. Shapes wander past your vision. Are they people, trees, smoke with ideas? You try to sit up. Your body disagrees. The world tilts. Your stomach rebels. You vomit into your lap and can't find the energy to feel embarrassed. Time detaches. You lose hours, maybe days. There's a goat with a crown in one dream. A woman with a face made of bread in another. You swear you hear your father's voice, telling you to wash behind your ears. You don't know if he's alive. You don't know if you are. At one point, someone brings you water. A boy, or a very small man. His hands are trembling. He pours it down your chin and wipes your face like you're made of paper. He doesn't speak. You want to thank him, but your tongue is heavy, thick, uncooperative. Later, you decide he was a ghost, or a saint, or both. You hallucinate a battle. One you're not in. You watch it from above, like a bird or a curse. You see men fall. You see a standard break. You see a night burst into flame, not dramatically, but accidentally, as if the world just got tired of pretending he mattered. You see Jeff. He's still swinging. You admire his tenacity. When you wake again, it's dark, or your eyes are closed, or your visions simply left the building. You try to move. Something cracks. It might be your ribs. It might be time. Someone is sitting near you. You hear breathing, then singing, a low, off-key lullaby in a language you don't know. It's soft, gentle, terrifying. You try to ask who they are. You don't need to, because when you turn your head, you see the rotting edge of a face. The person sitting beside you is dead, or should be. They smile. You pass out again. The next time you stir, the sun is up. The fever has lessened just slightly. The smell of your own body hits you like a betrayal. You've soiled yourself. Your lips are cracked. Your hands are curled like claws. The dead man is gone. So is the water. But your turnip is still there, resting on your chest like a benediction. You cough. It hurts less than yesterday. You're not healed, you're not better, but you're still here, somehow. And you whisper to the turnip, or the sky, or the stranger who sat with you. Thank you, because in this place, ... surviving the night feels like winning the war. You're up, not standing, not walking, but upright, sort of. Propped against a log that might once have been a cart, or a fence, or a very stiff man. The sun is somewhere above you, hiding behind the smoke. The skies are vague beige, the color of old bones and dried soup. You're not dead. This surprises everyone, including you. Your fever has receded, like a tide leaving behind wreckage. You're cold now, in the deep way that lives in your spine. You're too weak to shiver. Your bones feel soft. Your muscles hum with confusion. Even your teeth seem to weigh more than they used to. Someone notices you're alive. They bring you broth, or what they claim is broth. It tastes like twigs, oil, and regret. You drink it anyway. They smile. You want to cry. You don't, because your body has forgotten how. You are a recovery case now. That's what they call you. A survivor, a lucky one. The kind of story they whisper to each other at night to pretend things aren't as bad as they clearly are. But recovery in a medieval battlefield camp is not healing. It's ... the absence of death. No one expects you to get better, just to get worse, more slowly. Your sores scab over, but itch like madness. Your cough retreats, but never fully vanishes. Your appetite returns, but nothing tastes like food anymore. Even the rats sniff your bowl before deciding to pass. You walk a little, 5 steps, 10. Your legs wobble like you've been drinking. Maybe you have. Maybe it was water. Maybe it was wine. Maybe it was the mysterious bucket labeled tonic that smelled like turpentine and despair. You try to speak. Your voice is sandpaper dipped in vinegar. It hurts. No one listens anyway. The healthy men, what few remained and want to talk to you. You're a reminder of what they'll become, of what they'll smell like, of how quickly the body stops being a body and becomes a warning. So you sit alone, you pet your turnip, you count the clouds, and every time someone coughs behind you, you flinch. Because you remember the boiling skin, the trembling nights, the rot behind your eyes. You remember the silence after the moans, the empty tents, the flies, the way the priest's voice cracked when he reached your name on the list, then skipped it just in case. You've come back from that place, but you didn't come back whole. You're stitched together now, with mud, with fever dreams, with fear. You are not the man you were before the sickness. You are quieter, you are slower. You are watching everything, and part of you wonders, if this is living, what was dying? But you don't ask aloud, because no one answers those questions here. They just hand you another bowl of broth, and tell you you're doing great. There's something about armor, in paintings, in stories, in the fever dreams of would-be heroes. It gleams, it glints in the sunlight. It fits like a second skin and moves like it's barely there. It protects, it uplifts. It transforms a mortal man into a walking legend. That is, of course, nonsense. Armor is a prison made of metal and wishful thinking. If you're lucky enough to be given any, most of us, it doesn't arrive polished and heroic. It arrives late, second-hand, and smells like every other man who's died in it. You slide into it like a borrowed coffin. It's damp, it's rusted. The straps are mismatched, and the inside is lined with something that was definitely fur, but might have been living recently. It does not fit. Nothing medieval fits. You are too short for the greaves, too wide for the chest plate, and the helmet wobbles like it's afraid of commitment. The whole thing shifts when you walk, clangs when you breathe, and pinches your thighs in a way that feels oddly personal. You do not move like a knight. You move like a spoon dropped down a staircase. And it's heavy. Gods, it's heavy. 30, 40, 50 pounds strapped to your skeleton like regrets. You stand still, and your back starts to ache. You walk 10 feet, and your lungs start to rethink their loyalties. You run. No, you don't run. Not unless something's on fire, and even then, the fire might win. But it's worth it, right? For the protection. Let's talk about that. Armor stops swords, sometimes, from certain angles, if they're not swung too hard, and if the blade isn't already chipped or cursed or dipped in the blood of someone more important than you. But it doesn't stop the shock. You get hit in armor, you don't bleed immediately, but your bones rattle, your lungs spasm, your kidneys file for emancipation. You fall, you roll, you try to get up, and the weight turns you into a tragic turtle. You lie there, flailing, grunting, wondering if death would be faster than humiliation. And then there are the gaps. Oh, the gaps. Because armor isn't seamless. It's a suggestion, a hope, a collection of metal parts joined together by string, leather, and prayer. The armpits are open, the thighs are exposed, the back of the knees, a festival of vulnerability. You wear a helmet. It limits your vision. It echoes every sound. It makes breathing feel like a negotiation, and it doesn't always stay on. One good hit, one bad fall, and the damn thing spins sideways like a disoriented crab. You're now blind, deaf, and tripping over your own chin strap. You ask for help, someone kicks you. You get up anyway, because you're wearing armor, and that means you're one of the lucky ones. You tell yourself this again and again, between the bruises, the breathlessness, the quiet sobs behind your visor. I'm lucky, even as your sweat pools in your boots, even as your fingers go numb from chafing, even as your shoulder joint pops every time you lift your arm to wave goodbye to someone who's already dying. I'm lucky, because they told you armor keeps you alive, and you want to believe them. You really do. The breastplate looks impressive. Broad, convex, shimmering if recently polished, which it never is, designed to deflect blows and instill fear. It's what makes a man into a knight, at least in the eyes of those who've never worn one. But the truth is, it's a dinner tray strapped to your chest. And not even a good one. It doesn't move with you. It moves against you. You bend, it resists. You twist, it digs. You lie down, it tries to crush your lungs. And if you fall face forward, congratulations, you've become a turtle with a very short life expectancy. It takes 2 men to roll you over. One to hold your legs, another to yell encouragement. Neither of them survives the battle. And then there's the gorge at the throat piece. Sounds elegant, doesn't it? Like something a poet might wear to brunch. But what it really does is choke you every time you try to look down. And you must look down, because you're constantly tripping on your own grieves, on fallen comrades, on mud, blood, severed limbs, and the occasional discarded sausage. If you don't look down, you fall. If you do look down, the gorget clamps your neck like an overzealous aunt. You pick your poison. The arm harnesses are worse. Jointed plates meant to let you swing a sword while keeping your limbs attached. That's the idea. But jointed in the medieval sense is more theoretical than practical. Every time you raise your arm, something pinches, something else pops. And if you do it wrong too fast, too high, you get stuck. Actually stuck. Like a metal scarecrow waving at death. And then, the worst of all, the helmet. The great helm, the barrel helm, the visor, the nasal, the pot. Whatever its shape, its purpose is simple. To make you deeply, catastrophically unaware of your surroundings. You hear nothing, you see less. Your breathing sounds like wind through a broken organ pipe. You turn your head and knock someone unconscious with your shoulder plate. You sweat inside it like a condemned man in a sauna. The leather lining smells like vinegar and nightmares. The chin strap never sits right. And if you're hit hard enough, the whole thing rotates now. You're blind, deaf, and facing the wrong way. And God help you if someone lifts your visor in battle, not to check on you, to stab you through the eye. That's what they aim for. The gaps, the slits, the inch-wide invitation between you and oblivion. So you keep it down and suffocate. You try to take it off later, but your fingers are shaking. Your arm won't lift. The buckle's jammed. And now the inside of your helmet smells like hot pennies and despair. You ask Jeff for help. Jeff uses a rock. It works. Eventually, you lose a tooth. And when it's all off, when your helmet is finally gone, your body half stripped, your sweat cooling in the wind, you feel lighter. Vulnerable, yes, but free. And that's when the arrow hits you, right in the collarbone, just beneath where the armor used to be. Because, of course, it does. They tell you the knights are the elite, the armored core, the shining bulwark, the unstoppable force that breaks the enemy line, turns the tide, claims the glory. But no one tells you what happens when the tide doesn't turn, when the line doesn't break, when the enemy doesn't run. They don't tell you that knights sink. Heavy armor is impressive in theory. In practice, it makes you less man and more very expensive luggage, especially on a horse. The image, a knight in full plate, seated atop a towering warhorse, lance poised like a lightning bolt, cape flapping behind him like destiny incarnate. The reality, a terrified man gripping with his knees, trying not to vomit into his visor, praying his horse doesn't spook at a rabbit. Because if it does, and you fall, you can't get up, not alone, not fast, and certainly not gracefully. You lie there, flailing, face down, your sword caught under your chest plate, your groin crushed by 50 pounds of steel and shame. And the worst part, your horse runs away. It has no loyalty. It has no sense of pageantry. It bolts because it's a living creature and it fears death. And now you're a turtle with a feather in his hat, waiting to be flipped or finished. You call for help. No one hears you. Or worse, someone doesn't. They loot you instead. Because armor is valuable, you're not. If you're wounded, they don't drag you to safety. They unstrap your greaves. They whisper, sorry. They take your boots, your helm, your purse, and leave you there. Shining, broken, barefoot. You try to crawl. The ground is uphill. The grass is wet. Your gloves are gone. You move a foot. You stop. A peasant steps over you. Not even an enemy, just someone from the village, gathering spears. They see your eyes. You plead with them. They take your belt buckle. You black out. Later, they tell stories of how knights held the line, how their bravery bought time, how their sacrifice meant victory. They don't tell the story of the knight who suffocated in his own helmet, or the one who drowned in a stream because he couldn't roll over, or the one eaten by pigs when no one came back for him. The pigs don't care about chivalry, neither does history. And armor. Armor keeps the blade out, sure, but it can't keep the loneliness out. It can't keep the fear out. And it can't keep the mud out of your mouth when you scream and no one listens. At some point after the 5th fall, after the 3rd near miss with a crossbow bolt, after the 2nd time you nearly drowned in your own sweat shoe, stop noticing the weight of the armor, not because it gets lighter, because you get heavier. The armor becomes part of you, not in the romantic sense, not like a second skin or a noble mantle, more like a parasite, something that clings, something you drag, something you wear not because it protects you, but because taking it off would feel like peeling away what little hope you have left. It's inside your bones now. Your spine adjusts, your walk hunches, your shoulders round. You forget what it felt like to move freely, and inside the helmet, it's a world of its own, an echo chamber, every breath amplified, every exhale bouncing back into your ears like waves off a cave wall. You hear yourself pant, gasp, cough. You hear your heartbeat pounding like a drum. You hear your thoughts louder than they ought to be. You want to scream, but it would stay inside. It would just rattle. The visor offers 2 narrow slits for vision. Through them, the world is a painting smeared with smoke. You catch glimpses, flashes of movement, limbs flailing, a flicker of fire. You're never sure what's real. You blink too slowly. You miss too much. Once, you turned your head to look for your unit. You rotated too far. The edge of your helm caught your collar. Your view snapped back. You saw stars, and then the helm fogged up. Not from weather, from your breath, from your panic. The air inside turns hot, damp. You try to breathe deeper. It makes it worse. You start to choke. You reach up to lift the visor, forgetting the clasp has rusted shut. You yank, nothing. You panic. You claw, still nothing, and then you stop. You breathe, slow, through your nose. Shallow, the fog lifts slightly. You sit still, shaking, heart beating like it wants out. And all around you, the world is moving, shouting, clashing, dying. But inside the helmet, there is only you, and the sound of yourself falling apart. You start talking, not to anyone, just to stay sane. You name the dents in your chest plate. You name your helmet, Gerald. You beg him to be kind. And sometimes, he listens. But not always, because Gerald isn't designed to comfort you. He's designed to survive you. And when you die, he'll be pried off, wiped down, handed to the next poor bastard. No one will remember your name, but Gerald will ride again. Eventually, the battle ends, not with a flourish, not with triumph. It ends like the closing of a cellar door, quiet, final, and vaguely ominous. You're still alive, somehow. You've dragged your armor-clad body through mud, screams, and a rainstorm made of other people's bad decisions. And now you're standing, sort of, swaying like a shipmast that forgot what the sea feels like. Someone tells you it's over. You don't know what that means. You don't remember how to feel relief. Your armor creaks as you try to turn your head. The world moves slowly, as if mourning. You try to lift your arms, and something inside your shoulder gives up. It doesn't break, it just quits. You look down at yourself. You are filth in a tin can. You smell like boiled goat and terror. You taste blood and regret. Your chest plate is dented in 3 places, stained in 5. One gauntlet is missing a finger. The other has fused to your skin, where the lining gave up during the fever. You are not safe. You are simply ... not dead yet. Someone says, take it off. You stare at them. You forgot that was an option. A squire comes to help, young, eager, unscarred. He struggles with the buckles. He winces at the smell. He pulls at the laces, and the jerkin peels away like wet bark. Your arm emerges, pale and bruised, veins dark with exhaustion. You expect to feel relief. Instead, you feel naked. Cold air hits your chest, and it burns. Your skin has grown used to the prison. Without it, you are exposed, fragile, mortal again. The squire lifts the helmet last. It takes effort. When it finally comes off, light rushes in, and it hurts. The sun, muted though it is, slams into your skull like a bell. The breeze brushes your cheek, and you flinch. Everything is louder. The air is louder. You blink. Your hair is matted. Your face is swollen. The pressure in your head releases like a dying accordion. You feel the tears before you know you're crying. They track through the dirt on your cheeks like rain down a tombstone. The squire says something kind. You don't hear it, because the armor is off, but the weight remains. The pressure in your chest, the phantom grip around your ribs, the knowledge that at any moment it might all begin again. You'll have to crawl back inside that steel shell like a wounded snail. You sit down, the ground is damp, but you don't care. You cradle your own hands like lost things, and for the first time in days, you take a full breath. It doesn't make you feel better, but it reminds you that you're still here. And in this world, on this field, that might be the bravest thing anyone can do. They call them war horses, as if the word war could be tamed and saddled. As if these massive, snorting creatures were bred for battle like steel with hooves. As if they were machines, predictable, noble, divine. They are not. They are animals. Terrified, confused, beautiful animals, with eyes the size of your fist, and hearts that beat like battle drums when the shouting starts. You remember the first time you stood near one. It was taller than you, broader. Its breath steamed in the morning air. Its flanks quivered with every noise, every flicker of motion. Its nostrils flared like it had already seen your death and didn't care much for the details. They gave you a rope and said, "Lead it." You laughed. Then it kicked someone in the shoulder and sent him flying like a broken kite. You stopped laughing. War horses aren't pets. They aren't your friends. They're weapons with wills. They wear armor, sometimes. Steel faceplates, leather barding, sometimes even chainmail draped over their haunches, like expensive anxiety blankets. But underneath, they're still horses. Creatures that hate loud noises, sudden movements, and dying men, which, unfortunately, are all you have here. When the horn blows, they panic. Some rear, some bolt, some freeze and won't move until coaxed, cursed, or clubbed. You once saw a captain punch his own mount in the neck just to get it to charge. The horse bit him. He bled for 2 days. In theory, you ride into battle. In reality, you cling, you bounce, you bruise, you beg. The horse moves how it wants, when it wants. You are merely along for the increasingly horrific ride. It shies at corpses. It screams at fire. It slips in blood-slick mud and nearly throws you into the waiting embrace of a spear tip. And if you do fall, God help you, because in its terror, the horse might trample you. Not out of cruelty, out of fear, because the horse is scared too. And no one trained it for this, not really. Sure, they practiced. They saw torches, they heard drums, but they didn't see Jeffrey's head rolling past their hooves. They didn't hear the sound a man makes when he's stabbed through the stomach and still alive enough to ask for his mother. You look into your horse's eyes before a charge. You see the same thing it sees in you, panic wrapped in purpose. It doesn't trust you. You don't blame it. You don't trust yourself either. The trumpet sounds. You grip the reins like they're the last honest thing left in the world. Your thighs clench, your heels press, your mouth dries. The horse doesn't wait for you. It lunges, and just like that, you are no longer riding. You are clinging to speed, to momentum, to something much larger than yourself, with hooves like hammers and no fear of God or geometry. The ground shakes beneath you, not metaphorically. It physically trembles under the collective thunder of dozens, maybe hundreds of war horses surging forward, riders wobbling like poorly secured packages. The wind hits your face, full of smoke and iron and something that might be burning hair. You squint through your visor slit. You see nothing, just blur, shapes, motion, the occasional flash of steel, a screaming banner, a crow calmly flying the other way, and then you hit. Not a target, just ... impact. The first row of footmen is a wallland. The wall shatters. You feel the jolt through the saddle, through your hips, through your spine. You almost bite through your own tongue. Something crumples under your horse's hooves. You pray it wasn't a friend. You pray it wasn't you. The lance in your hand, gone. You didn't drop it. You don't remember using it, but it's gone, splintered maybe, or stuck in someone's chest, or flung somewhere into a bush that will now be remembered for 100 years as the lance bush. You fumble for your sword. You pull it out. You almost drop it. You swing once, twice wildly. You hit something. It screams. Might have been a man. Might have been a tree. You don't stop to check. Your horse is panicking. Its eyes are wild. It kicks at shadows. It tries to bolt sideways. You haul at the reins, shouting nonsense, hoping your voice cuts through the chaos. It doesn't. There is no control, only direction. And even that is an illusion. The field is madness. Bodies tumble past. Some on foot, some on horseback, some no longer in one piece. You see a man flying, just flying through the air, helmet spinning beside him like a silver moon. Your horse screams. A sound you didn't know horses could make. Not a neigh, not a whinny, a scream. Like metal tearing, like a soul snapping in half. It rears. You nearly fall. You don't know how you stay on. You don't know how long it lasts. Minutes, a day. You are not a man anymore. You are inertia with limbs. And then, suddenly it stops. Not the battle, just you. Your horse halts. No command, just instinct or exhaustion. Or maybe it's finally understood the pointlessness of it all. You sit, swaying. Your sword is gone. Your arms are numb. Your legs are bleeding. The horse pants, so do you. and you realize something. You didn't charge the enemy. You survived the horse. And in this war, that's saying something. You don't remember the fall. Just the moment before it, when everything tilted, when the wind shifted, when the horse's back arched beneath you like a wave about to crash, when your right foot caught in the stirrup a second too late, and your left foot slipped, and then nothing, then mud. You hit the earth with a sound that isn't a sound, more a feeling, a deep, dense thud that travels through your bones like a message. This is how you die. Your breath vanishes. Not knocked out, evicted. Your ears ring. Your eyes blur. Above you, the sky wheels, slowly, impossibly bright. A bird passes over. You hope it remembers you. You hope it tells someone. Your horse is gone. Just like that. No goodbye. No backward glance. You lie there, one leg twisted, armor digging into your ribs, cheek pressed into something cold and wet, and probably formerly human. You try to move. Nothing obeys. You hear thunder. Not sky thunder. Hooves. The charge has looped around. They're coming back. Or maybe the enemy is charging now. Maybe everyone is. You don't know. You can't see. All you know is this. You are on the ground. And no one stays alive on the ground. You push with your elbow. It slips. You try again. Your fingers sink into the mud. You think, briefly, of how soft the world becomes right before it swallows you. A soldier trips over you. Doesn't stop. Doesn't look. Just curses and keeps going. Another man nearly steps on your hand. You pull it back too late. A hoof grazes your helmet. Sparks flash in your vision. You smell iron, and not the clean kind. You roll, that's all you can do now. Roll like driftwood. Roll like you're hoping to become a hill. You end up behind a cart, shattered, splintered, draped in canvas. You don't care, you breathe. The world moves on around you. It forgets you quickly. The charge continues. The shouts fade. The ground shakes, then steadies. You're not part of the story anymore. You're part of the debris. And still, somehow, you are not dead. It feels like an oversight. You take stock. One arm works. One leg might. Your helmet is cracked. Your ribs protest every breath. But you're here. And when the dust finally settles, when the horses return, panting wild-eyed foam on their lips, see your own mount among them, still alive, still moving. It doesn't come to you. It doesn't know you. It is just one more soul dragged through hell and spat out the other side. You watch it vanish into the tree line, and you whisper, hoarse and half-laughing, "Me too, friend, me too." When the dust clears, when the field is no longer alive, with thundering hooves and screaming steel, what remains is silence. Not the peaceful kind, the kind that aches. The kind that lets you hear the little things. The breath of a wounded horse. The creak of saddle leather as it shifts under nothing. The sharp, wet snap of a leg broken wrong. You crawl drag, reel across what was once ground and is now a churned stew of blood, hoof prints, and things you don't name. You move toward the noise. You don't know why. Habit, hope, something older than language. You find one, a horse, collapsed, breathing raggedly, one eye open, dull, wide, its flank heaving, its mane tangled with briars and blood. It looks at you like you're an insect, like you're the only thing small enough to understand. Its leg is twisted beneath it. You reach out, it doesn't flinch. Not anymore. You whisper something nonsense mostly. Kindnesses, apologies, words that have no power here but feel necessary to say. The horse blinks once. You think that means it hears you. And you remember something the stable master said long ago, before all this. They don't charge because they want to. They charge because we make them. And we make them because they're faster than us. Not smarter, not braver, just faster. Speed, you realize, is its own kind of cruelty. A man on foot can hesitate. A man on foot can stop. But a horse, once running, must keep going. Momentum replaces thought. Force replaces choice. And when the world collapses in front of them, they can't adapt. They just keep running, straight into pikes, into ditches, into fire. You see one now, dead, skewered. Not from the enemy, but from a stake someone buried days ago, in case the cavalry charged this exact path. You see its teeth bared, its lips peeled back, its saddle still intact, its rider nowhere to be found. You wonder if he jumped off in time. You wonder if the horse screamed. You wonder why the bards never sing about this part. You look back at the one beside you, still breathing, still bleeding, still waiting for someone to decide what happens next. You press your hand to its neck. The skin is warm, slick, trembling. You have no blade sharp enough, no skill steady enough. You can't save it. You can't end it. You can only sit, so you do. You sit in the mud beside a dying warhorse and hold its gaze like you're promising something you cannot possibly deliver. You both understand. Neither of you belonged here. Neither of you had a choice. And both of you, in your own way, ran because someone else said go. The horse dies sometime before dawn. You don't see the exact moment. You're there, you're watching, but it's quiet. No gasp, no shudder, no dramatic fall. One moment it's alive, the next it just isn't. The eye stays open. That's the part they don't prepare you for. You want to close it, like in the stories, like in the paintings where the night falls, noble and picturesque, and someone leans over with a trembling hand to shut the eyes with grace. You try, it doesn't work. The eye stays open. You sit beside it until the sky lightens. Not because you're brave, not because you're kind, but because you're too tired to move, and the body beside you feels like the last warm thing in the world. By morning, the crows arrive. You wave them off at first, then you stop. Let them have it, you think. The horse did its part. Let the world take its turn. Back in camp, you hear the others talking. Not about the horses. Never about the horses. They talk about the charge. About who made it through, who didn't. About a banner that fell and a trumpet that cracked, and how Jeff took a blow to the head and now thinks he's married to a tree. No one mentions the mount that carried him there. No one remembers the animal that ran, panicked and shivering, into the teeth of war so that someone else could swing a sword from higher ground. You ask, once, what happened to the horses? A man shrugs. They die, same as us, but it's not the same. They die scared. They die obeying. They die running toward sounds they were trained to ignore. From men who don't know their names, for causes they didn't choose. And if they live, they remember. You've seen it. The ones who survive dragged back to the paddock, muscles trembling, foam dried on their flanks. They don't sleep. They don't eat. They watch the wind like it's plotting something. You walk past them. You see the whites of their eyes. You know that look. It's the look of something that ran too far and came back with part of itself missing. You see your own reflection in it. You nod. You keep walking. And as you leave, one of them snorts softly. Not fear, not anger. Recognition, because you both remember. And you both know no bard will ever sing about this part. You've spent days, weeks learning to hate them. The enemy. Faceless, nameless, monstrous. They eat babies, probably, burn villages, worship the wrong gods, wear the wrong colors, speak the wrong words. You've been told they don't feel pain like you, that they die cleaner, that their blood is thinner, that they're crueler, weaker, simpler. It's all lies, but useful ones. Because if you believe the truth that they are just like you, it becomes a lot harder to swing a blade through their chest. But now the battle's over, and you see one, lying in the mud, maybe 20 feet away, young, no beard, one boot missing. He's bleeding from somewhere hard to tell where. The blood's soaked into everything. His chest rises slowly, barely. He looks at you, and he's afraid. Not rage, not defiance, just fear. The same kind you felt 3 days ago in the medic tent, when the coughing started again and you thought, not me, not now, not again. He doesn't move, neither do you. There's no strength left in your sword arm. And besides, what would be the point? He's dying. You're not a butcher. Not yet. You take a step toward him. He flinches. He reaches for something his side. A pouch, a stone. You stop. Then he stops. You lock eyes. There's a moment, a long one. Long enough for the wind to shift. Long enough to smell the same rot. The same burned canvas and bile and wet rust that you've been living in for what feels like years. Long enough to understand he hasn't eaten either. He hasn't slept either. He didn't want this any more than you did. Maybe he joined because he had to. Maybe they promised him land, or coin, or a better life. Maybe they told him you were the monster. And maybe, for a while, he believed it. Just like you did. But not now. Now, he's just a boy dying in the same mud that tried to kill you last week. You kneel. You don't know why. Maybe to see better. Maybe to show him you're not going to finish what the arrow in his side started. Maybe just to rest. He coughs. Blood. Not much, but enough. You offer water, your last bit. He stares at it. Then at you. Then he drinks. Slowly, carefully. And for one strange moment between breaths, between lives, you're not enemies. You're just two men who were told a lot of lies. The field doesn't look like a battlefield anymore. It looks like a failed harvest. Men strewn like broken stalks. Armor glinting like discarded tools. The grass soaked in a color that no longer resembles anything alive. There are no banners now. No formation. No honor guard. Just bodies. Yours. Theirs. Ours. What does any of that even mean now? You step over one, then another. The uniforms blur. You stop checking the colors of the cloth. They all look the same when soaked through. Blood is the great equalizer. You pass a man with his mouth open, not gasping, just ... Open like he was trying to speak, to explain, to apologize. Or maybe he just died surprised, the way most people do. You close it gently, not because you're kind, because the flies are starting. Nearby, a dog is gnawing on a shin. It doesn't know sides. It doesn't care who wore which crest. It only cares that the bones are soft and the meat is easy. A child's voice cries, out faint, cracked. You turn, alarmed. It's not a child, just a man, dying slowly, the way some do. He's calling for his mother in a language you don't understand. It doesn't matter. You understand anyway. You kneel beside him. You try to offer comfort. A hand, a word, a lie. He looks at you like you're a ghost. Maybe you are. Maybe he is. When it's over, you close his eyes too. You don't ask who he fought for. You don't want to know, because you're starting to realize something. There is no them. There never was. Just frightened men with poor choices and heavy debts and crooked teeth and the same desperate prayer mumbled into the mud. And none of them, not one, wanted to die out here. Some had farms, some had lovers, some had brothers on the other side of the line. Some had nothing, but even that is something to die for. You pass a knight, fancy armor, gold trim, crushed like a bug beneath his own fallen horse. You pass a farmer, no armor, just a stick, head caved in. Muddy hands still clutching the haft like hope. Same end, same earth. You wonder if the priests ever walk these fields after the battle. You wonder what they say when they see 100 souls tangled together, wearing different flags but the same expression. Maybe they pray, maybe they weep, maybe they just mutter, "God have mercy," and step carefully. You don't step carefully anymore, because you know what they all know now, that the dead don't care who you fought for. They only care who remembers them. A strange thing happens once the killing stops. Quiet descends. People come out of holes. Fires are lit to signal, not to burn, but to warm hands. Warm bones. Warm the part of you that still believes you'll see another morning. And in that quiet, men talk. Not loudly. Not boastfully. Not the kind of shouting done around fires when the ale flows and the lies grow legs. This is different, softer, lower, less like speech, more like confession. You overhear them first. Two men, just beyond the tree line, laughing, laughing. You're sure you've misheard, but you creep closer, behind a half-crushed wagon, beneath a sky smudged with smoke and stars. And there they are. A soldier from your side, and one from theirs, sitting cross-legged, passing a flask back and forth, both bloodied, both bandaged, neither bothering with weapons anymore. They're comparing rations. One holds up a lump of cheese like it's sacred. The other offers a bread roll that could easily be used as a bludgeon. They trade, they chew, they wince, they laugh again. You keep watching. They swap stories next, not about valor, not about glory, about shoes, about blisters, about how many lice can live inside a single armpit and whether that number constitutes a miracle. They talk about home. One misses apples, the other misses salt. One has a wife, the other used to. They don't ask names, they don't ask ranks. Because none of that matters here. Here, on this side of the fight, they are not soldiers. They are survivors. And survivors speak a different language. You think about joining them. You don't. Not out of pride. Just uncertainty. But you watch them until the fire dims. Until they lean back. Until one falls asleep and the other pulls a blanket over both of them like it's nothing. Like they didn't try to kill each other 12 hours ago. Like they weren't meant to hate each other. Like the world might be different if only slightly, if only briefly because someone shared cheese under a ruined tree. The next morning, they're gone. No trace, no sign, just an empty flask and a half-burnt crust left behind like an offering. You wonder if you imagined it. You wonder if they were ghosts. And you wonder quietly, to yourself, if maybe, just maybe, peace is made not with treaties or kings, ... but with a bite of stolen bread in the dark. You find him at the edge of the tree line. Face down, one arm outstretched, fingers curled like he'd been trying to hold on to something that slipped away. His armor is scorched. One boot is missing. A crossbow bolt protrudes from his back at an awkward angle like an afterthought. Like someone just wanted to be sure. You roll him gently. Not out of habit, not out of duty. Just something in you says he shouldn't lie like that. His face is young, Not boyish, but not worn the way a soldier should be. There's dirt on his cheek, blood crusted around his mouth. His eyes, half open, are a pale, unreadable grey. And something about them, you freeze, because for just a moment they look exactly like your brother's. Not really, you tell yourself. Your brother's eyes are darker, or were. You haven't seen him in years. But it's close enough to make your hands tremble. You kneel, you whisper his name. The dead man doesn't answer, of course, but the shape of his face, the angle of his brow, all conspires to break you. Just a little, just enough. You sit down beside him. You rest your hand on his shoulder, like you would have done if he was still breathing. You start talking, quietly, just a few words. You tell him he did well, that he was brave, that maybe someone back home still waits for him. You don't believe all of it, but he deserves the words anyway. You reach for his satchel, not to loot, not really, just to see, inside, a scrap of cloth, a handful of nuts, a letter, water damaged, and written in a language you don't understand. But the handwriting is beautiful, careful, made by someone who loved him. You put it back, you take the cloth and drape it over his face. He becomes anonymous again, but not to you. To you, he's someone's brother, someone's son, someone's boy who got told the same stories, learned the same lies, sang the same marching songs, and laughed the same way when he saw a horse fart on a noble. He was like you, and now he isn't. And that hurts in a way you didn't think was possible anymore. You stand, your knees pop. You're cold now, but something in you has warmed, or burned, or changed. You don't know what to call it. You just know. The next time someone tells you to hate the man on the other side of the line, you'll remember these eyes. And you'll say, very softly, no. They don't tell you this part. They don't put it in songs. They don't carve it into stone. They don't pass it down in bedtime stories. But this is what most of war actually is. Not fighting, not glory, just cleaning up. You spend your morning dragging bodies. You don't know whose, yours, theirs. Both, it doesn't matter now. The commanders want them cleared. The priests want them blessed. The crows want them left alone. Everyone has an opinion, but none of them are doing the lifting. So you do. One arm under each shoulder, one heave, one stumble backward through the mud, through the blood, to the trench someone's finally decided to dig. You don't know his name. You don't want to. You just lower him in and walk away. Then another, then another. Your back screams. Your hands blister. Your stomach knots every time a limb bends the wrong way. Every time a helmet slides off, revealing a face that might have once smiled. You find one with a braid, long, pale, tucked behind her ear like it mattered. You pause. You look around. No one says anything. You carry her gently. You wonder if she volunteered. You wonder if she was forced. You wonder if anyone is waiting for her return. You doubt it. You dig, not deep, not well, just enough. You place her in the earth, as if that gesture can undo what came before. You cover her face. You step back, and the guilt settles in your ribs like a third lung. You know this wasn't your fault, and yet you were there. You swung the blade. You wore the crest. You shouted the chants. You did what was asked of you, and now you're here, ankle deep in someone else's nightmare, trying to feel human again. They bring the laundry next. Torn tunics, bloodied flags, socks stiff with things better left unmentioned. You scrub, you hang them to dry. You wipe your hands on your thighs and pretend that counts as progress. No one speaks. Everyone's busy with small acts of penance, washing, mending, feeding the fires, counting the dead. No one sings, no one laughs, not today. But in the quiet, you feel something stir. Not hope, not yet, but something adjacent. The idea that maybe, tomorrow, there will be fewer bodies, fewer trenches, fewer names you'll never know. You let yourself believe it, even if it's a lie, because some lies are softer than truth. And right now, you need softness. The first sign is the silence. Not the eerie kind you get on the morning of a battle, when the world holds its breath like it's about to do something unforgivable. This is different. This silence is exhausted, not triumphant, not holy, just ... No horns, no fanfare. Just a boy on a skinny horse, riding between both camps with a white scrap of cloth waving from the end of a broken spear. He doesn't even know which side won, neither do you, because no one feels like they did. There's talk of a treaty, a truce, a ceasefire agreed upon by men who never held a sword, never dug a trench, never washed blood from someone else's hands. They've decided the killing can pause, not end pause. Like war is a story you can close and return to later. They tell you to stand down, so you do. You sit down in the dirt with your back against a tree and you wait for something inside you to unclench. It doesn't, because even though the war has stopped, you haven't. Your body is still listening for footsteps, for shouts, for the crack of a bowstring, or the whistle of an arrow, or the sound a man makes when he realizes he's been forgotten. Your fingers twitch at the absence of a weapon. Your mind paces like a dog behind a locked door. No one tells you what to do with yourself now. The captains are all playing diplomat. The squires are sorting through salvage. The cooks are trying to stretch a turnip into 20 meals. You sit. You breathe. You try not to flinch every time someone walks behind you. A woman from the village brings bread. She doesn't speak your language, but she hands it out without flinching. Her face is lined, not with age, but with the memory of smoke. You take a piece. You say thank you. She nods once. That's the closest thing to peace you've known in months. You eat slowly, not because you're savoring it, because your stomach forgot what food feels like. You chew, you swallow. You feel it land in your gut like an unfamiliar kindness. You look around. Men are sitting now, in circles, in pairs, some alone. No one is cleaning their armor. No one is sharpening anything. It's not trust, it's fatigue. You close your eyes, and for the first time, nothing explodes behind them. Just the wind. Just the whisper of leaves returning to trees they once abandoned. And in that moment, you realize something. Peace isn't an arrival. It's an absence, a lull, a soft, terrible silence that asks, what now? You keep it anyway, your sword, even though it's chipped, even though the hilt is wrapped in cloth and blood and memory, even though you don't need it now. You clean it, not thoroughly, just enough to stop the rust, just enough to pretend it still matters. You tell yourself it's for protection, just in case, for wolves, for deserters, for some unseen danger that peace has not yet erased. But it's not, it's for you, because letting it go would feel like admitting that the thing you survived was real, that you did those things, that they were done to you. And there's something in the weight of it familiar, solid, stupid, that makes you feel less untethered. The sword grounds you, not like a totem, like a wound. You don't wear it openly. Not anymore. You slide it beneath your bedroll, under the straw, against the floorboards of whatever barn or shed or godforsaken lean-to you've been assigned for the night. You sleep above it, like a secret, like guilt. Others have cast theirs into the river. You watched them saloon, theatrical, all ceremony and grief. They said it felt like rebirth. You didn't believe them. They said it meant they were free. But you saw how their hands trembled afterward. You saw how one of them came back the next day, wet to the waist, digging in the reeds like a man who'd buried his heart in the wrong place. Your sword stays. You wake with your fingers around the grip sometimes, not because you want to fight, because your body still believes it has to. You carry it through the market, tucked, hidden. You feel the weight with every step, like a question, like a name you don't want to say out loud. You hear children playing nearby. They swing sticks, make sounds, pretend they are heroes. You flinch, not at the noise, at the simplicity, at the way their joy doesn't know what comes next. You want to tell them to put the sticks down, that they don't know what they're mimicking, that glory has teeth, that victory doesn't visit places like this. But you don't. You keep walking, sword-wrapped eyes down, trying to remember how to be a man who doesn't need it anymore. Trying and failing not to miss the part of you that did. They call it peace, but your hands still shake. Not always, just when you least expect it. When you reach for a cup, when you try to thread a needle, when you wake in the middle of the night because nothing moved outside your door. Your body doesn't know the war is over. Your breath still shortens when boots scuff behind you. Your shoulders still tighten when someone raises their voice. Your eyes still scan for exits every time you enter a room. They say, "You're safe now." You smile, you nod. You tell them thank you. But your body doesn't listen. Your back still aches from armor that isn't there. Your knees still bruise from kneeling in trenches long filled in. Your skin still itches where the lice used to live. And your ears never stop. You hear ghosts in the wind, in the groan of old wood, in the crackle of a hearth. Sometimes they're voices, sometimes just sounds, metal murmurs, that wet, awful snap when something inside a man gives out. You flinch at the wrong times. You laugh at the wrong jokes. You keep your boots by your bed, even when there's no drill, no march, no sergeant to scream your name. You don't remember how to sleep without one eye open. You keep food in your pockets. You check the perimeter before you pee. You trace scars like maps, not because you admire them, but because you need to remember they're real, that you're real, that you made it. But sometimes that doesn't help. Sometimes making it feels worse, because now you have to live with it. Now you have to become someone again. Not a soldier, not a number, not a moving piece in someone else's plan. Just ... a person. And that is terrifying. Because war gives you purpose. Horrible, brutal, simple purpose. Peace gives you nothing but time. And time, when you've seen what you've seen, is the loudest enemy of all. They gave you parchment, a peace offering, they said. Something to help process. A few sheets, a stub of charcoal, a small tin of ink crusted at the edges. As if healing were a matter of documentation. As if you could write your way back into a self that once slept easily. You sit, the ink stains your fingers before you've written a word. You stare at the page. You try to start with a name, dear, but none come easily. Not your mother, not your brother, not the girl who may or may not have waited. Not after all this. You try again. To the family of the man I killed, no. Your hand trembles. Not with grief, not even guilt, just fatigue. The kind that lives behind the ribs. The kind that watches you think and gently turns down the volume. You write, "It was cold that morning." It's true. You remember your breath coming out like fog, You remember the sound of frost beneath your boots. You remember that the first man who died looked surprised, as if the frost should have protected him. You keep going. We were told it would be quick. It wasn't. We were told we'd be remembered. We won't. You stop. The ink is bleeding through the page. Your thumb has started to cramp. You realize you haven't said who you are. You don't want to. What name would you use? The one they yelled on the line. The one your mother whispered when you were small. The one the dying man repeated, thinking you were someone else. You fold the letter. You don't sign it. You don't send it. You slide it under your cot like a note to the dead. You take another sheet. This one's for no one. You write what you can't say. I don't know how to laugh anymore without looking over my shoulder. I miss the silence, but only the kind that follows a scream. Sometimes I wake up gripping my sword. Sometimes I wake up gripping nothing. I'm not sure which is worse. I want to be touched without flinching. You stop again. This page, too, stays unsigned. You wonder how many letters like this exist, folded, hidden, burned before they were finished. Whispered into the dark, into the mud, into a horse's mane, into the shoulder of someone who no longer breathes. Maybe healing isn't writing. Maybe it's just the decision to keep speaking, even if no one hears. You lay the charcoal down. You close your eyes, and for a moment, just a moment, your hand stops shaking. They say it's over. They say you can go now. Pack up, head back. Return to the village, the town, the city, the stretch of nothing you used to call home. Whatever was waiting for you before, whatever's still standing, so you leave, slowly, like a man walking out of a dream where everything had weight and color and consequences, and into a world that feels too quiet, too light, too clean. The road home is longer than you remember, not in miles, in ghosts. Every tree has a shadow you mistake for someone lost. Every sound becomes something you forgot how to fight. You walk past a stream and remember a man who died in one. You pass a fence and remember tying a bandage to it in desperation. You see a flower blooming where someone once fell. And for the first time, you kneel not to pray, but to ask forgiveness from the ground itself. You carry it all with you, the smells, the sounds, the names real or imagined that lodged in your throat and never came out. Your neighbors greet you like a stranger. They mean well. They ask questions they think are gentle. Was it hard? Did you see battle? Did you kill anyone? They say it like they're talking about weather. You smile because it's easier than screaming. You nod because it's safer than telling the truth. You say, it's good to be back, and you hope to God they never notice how you flinch when a door slams. You return to your old room. Everything's smaller. Your bed, your chair, your name. You can't sleep indoors anymore. The walls press in. The silence doesn't comfort. So you lie outside, under stars you don't recognize, in air that no longer smells like burning, and you wait. For what? You don't know. Maybe for someone to understand. Maybe for the part of you that left to come back. Maybe just for the noise to stop echoing. You feed the animals, fix the roof, tend the fields, speak when spoken to. You do everything right. But some part of you still walks in armor, still waits for a horn, still counts the exits in every room. The war didn't end. It just went home with you, and now it sleeps beside your bed, and now it breathes behind your ribs, and now it wears your face when you look in the mirror. You don't know if it'll ever leave, but you keep waking up anyway, because maybe tomorrow it won't be the first thing you feel. The scrolls are being drawn up, not by you, not by anyone who ever held a sword. They're written by men in clean robes, at desks far from the sound of battle. Their ink is dark, their hands soft, their words permanent. They ask questions now. When did the skirmish begin? How many casualties on the first day? Who led the charge? They don't ask how long it took to bury the bodies. They don't ask how many letters were written to no one. They don't ask what it sounded like when the sky cracked open and rained ash and screams. You answer what you can. You lie when you must. They don't notice. They nod. They record. They file you under a number, a rank, a regiment, a result. You watch your life shrink to a footnote, and you realize, slowly, that you will not be remembered, not by name, not by deed, not by anything that matters to men who measure history in victories and treaties. You won't be in the song. You won't be in the book. There will be no statue, no plaque, no field trip of wide-eyed school children learning the story of the man who flinched in the dark and whispered prayers to a sword he never meant to carry. But you were there. You held the line. You ran from the line. You bled into the dirt and woke up anyway. You carried men off the field who cursed your name and wept into your chest. You stayed awake while others slept. You stayed alive when others didn't. You don't need a page to say it. Because every scar tells a truth louder than any ink. Every dream that wakes you sweating is a monument. Every quiet act of kindness you offer no gentler than before, slower, more deliberate is a testament. You may not be remembered, but you remember. And maybe that's the kind of history that matters most. The kind that lives inside you, that walks with you, that hums beneath your breath like a tune no one taught you. Because while the world moves on, you carry the cost, and that is its own kind of legacy. They called it a victory. The war, the battle, the campaign. They sent envoys with medals and scrolls, with gilded words and banners stitched too quickly. They used phrases like honor and sacrifice, and for a greater cause. They toasted with wine you never tasted. They drew maps in rooms you were not invited to. You didn't win, you just didn't die. And that's not the same. Victory implies a prize, something worth holding, something you carried home in your arms, not in your lungs or your nightmares, but you came back with holes, some visible, some not, and the only thing you gained was the weight of surviving what others didn't. They offer coins, land, sometimes, a corner of a field, a tool, a ribbon to pin to a jacket that no longer fits. You accept it because it's polite, because refusing feels like betrayal, because you don't have the strength to argue with people who smile too easily and sleep too well. But you don't feel victorious. You feel hollow, not broken, not ruined, just scraped out. Like the battle used your insides for firewood and left behind a shape that still walks, still speaks, still answers to your name, but doesn't quite fit in it anymore. People call you hero. You hate it. Because a hero is someone who chooses, and you didn't. You were hungry, or poor, or conscripted, or just in the wrong place when the wrong man made the wrong speech at the right time. You didn't want to be brave. You wanted to live. And now you have to do it. You have to keep going with the dreams, with the shakes, with the knowledge that somewhere, some boy will hear your name and think you were made of something stronger than fear. You'll nod, you'll smile, you'll pass the lie along because maybe it helps someone sleep. But deep down, where the sword used to rest, you know the truth. You didn't win, you just didn't die. And you're still not sure which was the better outcome. You see him in the square, young, too young. Straight-backed, polished boots, mouth set like someone practicing what courage looks like. His armor gleams, his sword is new. His eyes are still whole, no shadow in them yet. Just mirrors of you, of who you were. He nods at you, you nod back. Neither of you speaks. He doesn't know who you are. Not really. To him, you're just another man with a limp and a faraway look. Someone old. Someone done. He doesn't see the dent on your soul. He doesn't hear the screams behind your silence. He sees a warning and mistakes it for a legend. He walks past, confident, eager, full of the fire they feed you before the march. You want to stop him. You want to say, wait. You want to tell him what the blood smells like after 3 days in the sun. What it feels like to step over someone you knew the day before. How long the war follows you, even after you lay your sword down. You want to scream that the glory isn't real, that the battle doesn't make you a man, it unmakes you, but you don't, because no one would have stopped you either. You watch him go. You watch the armor that was once yours walk away. And you think, that suit fits him better. You think, he'll learn. You think, maybe he'll survive. You turn back to your bread, your chair, your shadow, and the thought that lingers longer than it should is not envy, but guilt. Because some part of you to be buried, cruel misses the weight, the certainty, the simplicity of waking up knowing what you had to do, even if it killed you. You hate that part. You forgive it anyway, because it's the part that kept you alive. And survival, as you've learned, isn't always noble. Sometimes it's just the quiet skill of not forgetting how to keep walking when the boots come off. You're home now. You sit at a table that once felt familiar. The wood hasn't changed. The plates are the same. The food tastes like memory but thinner. Like someone tried to copy your favorite meal from a recipe that left something out. People ask you questions. Was it awful? Did you see action? Are you glad to be back? You nod. You say yes, a little, of course. You learn the script. It's easy. It's polite. It keeps things moving. They ask if you'll write a book. You almost laugh, as if there's a way to explain what it feels like to watch a man you trained with get struck through the stomach and still try to hold in his intestines long enough to ask if he's going to make it. As if there's a story in you that would let your mother sleep soundly again. You keep your answers short. You keep your face calm. You become very good at chewing. The wine helps. A little. The fire crackles. Someone tells a joke. You smile at the right part. But beneath the table, your hands tremble. Not violently, just enough. You rub your thumb against your forefinger, over and over. A habit now, from counting pulse, from checking life, from holding weapons you swore you'd never need again. They don't notice. That's the cruel part. They see a man who came back whole. 2 arms, 2 legs, a face, a voice. They assume that means you're fine. They forget there are parts of you they never saw, and some of those didn't make it. You want to tell them, not everything, just one thing, that the worst part isn't what happened, it's how normal life feels after. How you can sit at a table with people who love you and feel like a ghost watching someone else eat your supper. How the sound of a knife against a plate still makes you flinch. How you memorize every exit even when you're home. How you still sleep facing the door. But you don't, because you've seen enough silence to know it doesn't always mean absence. Sometimes silence is mercy. Sometimes it's armor. And tonight you need all the armor you can get. So you raise your glass, you smile, you toast to peace, and you drink like it's the only thing still keeping you here. They said it would get easier, that time would smooth it over, that the past would fade like breath on glass. that the ache in your chest would grow lighter until one day you'd forget it was ever there at all. They were wrong. It didn't fade. You just grew around it, like ivy around stone, like scar tissue, like a man learning how to breathe through a bruise. It's still there every morning. The weight, the memory, the long echo of everything that didn't kill you. You carry it like a pouch beneath your ribs. Some days it's heavier. Some days it shifts when you laugh. Some days you almost forget, but never for long. You've learned to live with it, not to conquer it, not to overcome, just live. You rise early, you walk, you mend things, you speak when needed. You sit by the fire and listen to the stories of younger men who think they've invented loss. You smile, you nod, you pass the bread. You don't talk about it anymore, not because it doesn't matter, because you know the world moves on and you've chosen, stubbornly, to move with it. Even if part of you walks backward, always. Even if part of you still sees the battlefield in the morning mist. Even if part of you still thinks every loud noise might be the last thing you ever hear. You sleep in small rooms. You eat slowly. You listen to birds. You speak to animals more than people. You sit beneath trees and trace lines in the dirt like you're writing letters to someone who can't read. And this, somehow, is what survival looks like. Not banners, not books, not parades, just being here, one breath at a time, one morning after another, one foot forward, even when the world feels sharp, and maybe no one will write your name. Maybe no one will sing your story. But you lived. You stayed. You stayed. And that is the quietest, hardest, most important thing you've ever done. Thank you for being here tonight, truly. Whether you drifted off somewhere along the way or stayed with me through every footstep, I'm grateful. These stories are heavy, but maybe, in the quiet, they can lighten something inside us too. If this brought you comfort or kept you company in the small hours, feel free to subscribe. No pressure. Just a quiet invitation to return, if ever the world feels too loud. And if you're still awake, I hope sleep finds you soon. You deserve rest. You deserve peace. Good night.